This is Legends and Libations.
Sipping through history.
Let the journey begin.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Legends and Libations.
Sipping through history as usual.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Jesse.
And what are we talking about today, Jesse?
Yes, today we're talking about the Sorcerer's Stone.
Also known as the Philosopher's Stone.
Usually known as the Philosopher's Stone, right? But
usually, yes, but to get those Warner Brothers search engine optimization, we might refer to it as the Sorcerer's Stone.
And because as Americans, that is literally how the Harry Potter book gave it to us through our childhood.
Exactly.
Like, we never heard, most of us probably wouldn't have heard of the Philosopher's Stone
At all.
Mm-hmm. But we all know about it because of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, which in the UK edition is actually called the Philosopher's Stone.
Mm-hmm. I've been meaning to get some of those UK editions just to see like how they're different.
Oh yeah, there's little money things and like little odd bits, like little vocabulary.
I have a Scottish edition of the first book that's all like Scottish dialect.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, she wrote that in Scotland, right?
Really? Oh, yes. I've been past the little like tea shop where she got started.
Yeah, the Elephant House. Right?
That's exactly what it's called. Yep, good memory.
The graveyard nearby, the Greyfriars graveyard, where she got lots of the names for like Tom.
Oh, really?
A couple other names.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's cool. I've been there a few times.
Sound like you should do a Harry Potter tour, or like host one since you know all these little things.
I'm going to be your guide, taking you on a Harry Potter tour.
Okay, but as it turns out, that the Philosopher's Stone was not made up for Harry Potter.
Yeah,
it was
an
allegedly real thing that she took inspiration from and just incorporated it into the first book.
So much of her first book doesn't feel like original ideas, which don't get me wrong, it's fine. You know, like everything's adaptation, right? But so many of her things from even like, you remember Fluffy,
three-headed dog?
Yeah, is Cerberus, who comes from the Orpheus.
Yes, exactly.
Which we just did a few days.
We just talked about that. Yep,
weeks ago, right? So I
was wondering if that was the first time that was mentioned, or if that was being taken from something previously.
I mean, they even use a flute to make it fall asleep. Well,
exactly.
Uses his harp.
Well, I think that there is a harp that's playing in the movie version. Yeah, exactly. So that's like a double reference to Sir Orfeo and Orpheus.
Yeah, my goodness.
Wow. Yeah, we always come full circle.
Head, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anyways, so today, just to honor our childhood growing up on Harry Potter.
Speak for yourself, Jesse. I still listen to the Harry Potter audiobooks almost nightly. I definitely hold some sort of world record for listening to the audiobooks the most.
Which one's your favorite?
Oh, which book is my favorite? Yeah, that's really hard to choose, but it's going to be 4 or 6. It's always between those two.
Yeah, I really liked 4. 6, I only read it once, and it would be good to go over it again.
It's light years better than the movie. We just watched the movie the other day, and it was terrible. It might be the worst movie.
Yeah, I don't even think I've seen all the movies. I did read all the books, so those were a huge part.
Well,
anyways, for our
libation,
for our libation, I made some butterbeer for us.
Awesome. I can't remember what butterbeer tasted like. I think I did try it the time that I went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Universal. Universal. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have it there?
Yeah, it's delicious. In fact, when I go, I just get as much as I can. But it is very sweet for me.
Is it alcoholic?
No.
I didn't think so. No. Okay, yeah. So this is going to be a first then for this.
Yeah, so this is a good old pitcher of boozy butterbeer
that we made.
Yeah. We made this like literally an hour.
We have not tried it yet, but
so we're excited to see if it's any good.
We're going to start putting the recipe on the screen for you guys, but
that gives you some room for we also made homemade whip for it.
And this is it's kind of like knockoff butterscotch flavor since we didn't really have butterscotch available. So this is salted caramel and butter pecan flavor.
Wow. Look at that. That looks perfect. I'm so excited for this. So
I did try the whip ahead of time. I'm sorry, I forgot about the integrity of the podcast. And the whip is really good.
Oh, good.
All right.
We didn't try this. If it's well, I guess we'll see how it is.
All right. I like
Wow.
it. It's not too sweet. I'm saying that right now. I might change my mind at some point.
Well, yeah. So part of the recipe, which we again will put on. There's a way to make it sweeter if you guys are like really into sweet things. But this one's,
We're old enough to know that sweet things make your stomach hurt or your head hurt or both.
so we didn't want to go too sweet.
We're looking out for you guys.
Yeah, we're looking. So either follow the directions or don't and make it sweeter. Wow, this is.
But
nice.
you came across a lot of recipes for butterbeer, didn't you?
Oh, there's like 500 of them. I had to sift through. This one mostly pertains to butterscotch schnapps, spiced rum,
There was a little flexibility with that ingredient.
cream soda, and a little bit of sparkling water to kind of take down the sweetness.
I like it. I think we struck the sweetness spectrum pretty good right here.
Perfect for us. For a guy who usually drinks scotch, this is very nice.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a big sweet drinker.
So a few days ago, I did a poll on our Instagram.
Oh, yes.
If you could get a sorcerer stone and live forever, well, if you could be immortal, would you?
Would you choose to be immortal?
Out of the people who actually voted, some people just looked at
We
it.
appreciate you guys.
we appreciate you guys
If you
actually
voted in our poll, that was our first social media engagement experiment that we
Yeah,
had.
we'll get better at it. We're not very good at it, but I'm working on it.
Everything's a work in progress here at the Legends and Libations
So many of
Studios.
my students are like, did you get my email? And I'm just like, probably.
We went to this ghost town place the other day in what was it called? Cahaba, Alabama, for like a couple hours, and the lady was like, "Did y'all hear about us on TikTok?" And I was like, "Ma'am, we do not have TikTok. We have a baby. Do we look like we have TikTok?"
So, anyways, in our poll, 63% of voters said they would like to live forever,
Really,
which I thought was a pretty big number.
it is a pretty big number.
So, Matthew, would you live forever?
I voted in the poll and I said yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I think a little bit of my perspective is swayed by like these accounts that we're going to get into about the Philosopher Stone, and it made it sound kind of like how you would be able to like reinvent yourself and disappear and spice things up a little bit, you know.
Spice life
I mean, things might get boring after a few thousand years, but what would you say, Jesse?
So I always have a hard time because like I want to live a lot longer than the average human.
Right.
But
maybe
I want
not forever.
I want that Wolverine thing, like 500 years.
Yeah.
300 to 500 years.
Or like the Aragorn, where you could just like, you have extra long life.
Yeah, a couple generations. I might get a little sad seeing people that I love pass away. But
Think of how good you would become being a dungeon master.
yeah, I'd be the best.
Or
master.
Taekwondo.
Yeah, I'd become so good at it because
Exactly.
I've been practicing it for centuries. That'd be fun. So there's a part of me that's like, yes, and there's another part of me, but it doesn't seem like it always is actually immortality itself. It seems like it elongates your life.
Right. Look, you have to keep kind of consuming it. Because I remember in Harry Potter that Nicholas Flamel, who's going to be our main guy in a moment, that after the stone was destroyed, that he and his wife had to die eventually. They could still consume the amount of the stone that they had prepared the elixir of life, or the elixir that they had prepared previously, but they were not going to continue to live forever without the stone.
Which comes to what the heck
Is the stone.
Sorcerer's Stone?
Exactly.
And what does it do? Because there's some weird things about it.
Yes, there's different accounts for what it looks like.
What are some of the ideas that you got for what it's looked like? Like obviously, so one of the most popular ones is it's a red stone.
It's a red stone.
And how do you consume that?
You shave off bits of it. Or you like grind off bits of it
Yeah.
to use for different purposes into a powder. And we'll talk about that, about like what you can do with the powder at some point. But there's different, we can talk about how the recipe for the stone reflects the color of the stone. And it goes through like 4 different transmutations. Or like
some
4
whipped cream right
different.
here, bud.
Oh man, I got whipped cream on my face.
You're good now. You're good.
I was enjoying the whipped cream too much. But yes, so during the process, the stone goes through a refinement and it passes colors from black to white to yellow to red. and like red's like its final form.
Yeah, I like the red.
The red stone looks really cool.
Yeah, the red stone, it's beautiful. And the process reminds me of like what they do like with like creatine. They make the little crystals and then they have to break it up and like give it to people.
That sounds like meth. That's what the kids are calling it these days. Did you take your creatine? That pre-workout gets you hyped up. Okay, so what do we know about the real Nicholas Flamel? So he was a real person. This was not just made up for Harry Potter. Surprisingly.
Yeah, well, and Nicholas Flamel is a really interesting story. He's coming from the 13th century,
which is pretty long ago. Paris.
Yeah, we're looking at 600 years ago, right?
Right.
But he honestly lived a pretty modest life at first. When we meet him, when he comes onto like the Paris history, he's a book, like he owns a bookstore.
Right, and he like transcribes legal documents or like just writes them down. It was called like a draftsman.
Yeah.
It's one of his jobs. Yeah, scribe.
But now we shouldn't underestimate books. Like we think about books now and we're like, oh yeah, there's tons of bookstores and no one's like super rich off of books.
Right.
But
wait, Jesse, did you look up when the printing press was invented?
Yeah, it's like 1600s.
Oh, okay, good.
It's like during the Reformation period.
So this is pre-printing press.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is when the books had to be copied.
Yeah, he had to draft things by hand.
Gotcha.
And they didn't have like paper as we know it now. Like, well, yeah, like it would have been made of like thin leather.
That was one of the interesting things is that every time a book was described during my research was this, they would also be specific to mention what the pages were made out of because it kind of indicated like its age or authenticity.
Yeah.
And some of them were like animal skins or like, it sounded like really thinly shaved bits of trees as well, which was kind of like paper.
Yeah, kind of like paper, but
harder and like stiffer to turn.
Refined, absolutely. And I can't tell you for sure if like regular paper was a thing by this time. It wasn't regular by any means.
It was not regular, but 8.5 by 11, A4 sheets of paper.
Yeah, with like little lines already printed in for you. But yeah, Nicholas Flamel would transcribe these books, and it was actually a pretty lucrative business.
He had a modest living, I think.
Yeah, he wasn't poor by any means.
Right.
But
this wasn't Amazon. This wasn't Jeff Bezos and the online bookstore
no
sort of book idea. This was
Amazon. Yeah, a day. What a bookstore. Now it's like, can I get my groceries?
Can I get my pharmaceuticals?
And so one of the ways that he come like as a transcriber, he loves books. That's one of the things he does. He loves books, and he's married to Quirrell. Quirrell was twice widowed before him.
Right, and she inherited a little bit of money from these guys.
Yeah, so they were living well-to-do because
So it wasn't necessarily the book business. It was kind of like
it was the book
the widow settlement.
Inheritance, right?
Yeah.
Nonetheless, one night, he's like a little sleepy. Falls asleep in his chair next to the fire.
He's been copying books all day.
He's thinking about books. He better love books because books are his life, and they're about to consume his life even more. Oh, they're about to take him on an Indiana Jones level of adventure.
I love it.
He is sleeping, and some kind of angelic being meets him.
This is like a dream.
Yeah, this is a dreamscape,
like a vision sort of thing.
Yeah, and the angel comes to him bearing a book, and the book was unique in every way. It looked old, ancient, with weird symbols on it.
It had metal on the outside. Yeah, I think it was like
copper,
leather and copper that was bound together.
And he's like, I've never seen a book like that. And he's very lusty for books, so he's like, give me that book. And the angel's like, no, you can't have it yet, but don't worry, you will soon receive this book. And then he wakes up.
And he's like,
consumed
that was weird
with this idea of this book. Like, a lot of us are like, we have a dream. We're like, oh, that was weird.
Yeah, exactly.
No, not Nicholas.
Trying to equate this to like a modern day, like analog. And would this be like dreaming about like the iPhone 50 or like some like car that flies or something like that?
Yeah, and seeing how it all works, but like not being able to actually look at it.
The cars that Elon Musk actually promises that we'll have, and like not the ones that he delivers.
The ones that
do self-drive themselves.
And then they'll drive us to Mars.
Yeah, exactly. We're going vertical now, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so he dreams about the book, or he has the vision.
Yeah, and he I mean, for years he kind of obsesses about
some time passes.
He thinks he might it might be on one of his shelves. He looks for it. He's like, okay, it's not here. He looks around, like he just is in this kind of searching mode, but then he kind of like lets it lay.
Right.
He's like, okay, I'm not finding it. Whatever.
It's not at the used bookstores around here.
Yeah. It's nowhere to be found. It's not in my bookstore. I wonder how many books he had to be thinking about, oh, it might be in here. Like,
he would know instantly if he had ever seen the book before. Probably.
Yeah, it was so unique.
Yeah.
Well, what happens is one late night a couple years later.
In 1357.
Yeah, 1357. You got the date.
I wrote it down.
He's about to close up shop, about to switch that sign to closed. He's been working all day. He's tired.
He sees some guy coming in at the last second.
Like you're like, oh,
and you're like,
Christmas shopping,
oh
right?
Man, dang it!
I was gonna. Do I
really have to serve this guy at closing time? But I guess I own the shop, and for my reputation, I should probably see what he does. Yeah. He's
like the only guy working there, so he has to show up, right? He can't blame it on the boss.
It directly affects his livelihood. So
he was like, okay,
what's up?
Yeah,
what you got?
What do you got? He's like, what? He's like, what do you want? And he's like, actually, I have a book to sell. And from his hands is this large, ancient-looking.
He like pulls it out of his cloak, like all dramatic. Yes,
all dramatic. He's like, have you seen this book before?
And it's the book from the dream.
It's the exact book from the dream, brass binding and everything. He's like, oh, I just need it. I need it. I want it.
Yes.
And this guy goes really cheap. He's like, yeah, for 50 quid. That's like nothing.
Wait, did your source say 50 quid?
Oh, it said like 50.
It said 2 florins is what I have written down.
That's equal to $50.
Okay.
That's a modern day $50, right?
I thought florins was like the old thing and quid would be like the new thing.
Sorry. 50 quid is what it's modern.
Oh, okay.
Which is about $51.
Okay, well, that's more than I thought that he got, because when I saw 2 florins, I thought that was going to be like 50 cents or something.
No. That was quite, but this still was cheap.
Considering the effort that the book probably took to make.
You think of Chaucer, who's around the 1300s. There's a guy that has 7 books in the Canterbury Tales, and he's really rich because he has 7 books. Wow, look, I have 7 books. I'm very rich. That's what he says.
I imagine he does.
But
does he have this book?
The guy sells it to him, 50 quid.
Of course.
2 florins, right? There it is.
He lowballs him and he accepts.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, absolutely, I'll buy that.
I'm just hungry.
Yeah, guy's like, I need to get rid of this book. I need to eat.
Exactly.
So he sells it.
And he opens up the book and finds out that he cannot read the book at all.
Anything, but there's cool symbols in it.
Oh, yeah, there's pictures, there's symbols. The book's only 21 pages long, but it's full of writing.
3 sections, right?
3 sections.
Sections, 21 pages. Made from tree bark.
That's what it was.
Yeah, the pages are tree bark, so they're very thick pages.
Exactly. It's like some of my child's books where I'm like, okay, we're gonna read a story now, and the book has like 6 pages, and the pages are either floppy or they're made out of like 1/2-inch thick cardboard.
Yeah, so that when you chew on them, they're fine.
Exactly.
So yeah, he's like, it's these weird symbols. There's dragons and there's serpents and there's crosses on some of it, and then there's this weird. He does come to the conclusion that some of it is at least Hebrew.
Okay, does he figure this out on his own, or he just like kind of recognizes it? Because I know it's not French and Latin were the first like most common things that books were written in.
Yeah.
Where he lived.
Yeah. He's not seeing he's not seeing anything like this. And so he's like, well, some of this looks like Hebrew. Maybe if I find a good Jew, I'll be able to, like, who's knows Hebrew, because that's what the religious ceremonies are in. I'll be able to.
He'll be able to translate it for me. Yeah.
But France had a law at the time where if you were Jewish, you were going to get kicked out.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because I wondered why he couldn't just find somebody nearby.
No, it was illegal to really be.
It was illegal to be a Jew.
It was illegal to be a Jew.
They were borrowing a little bit from the Nazis ideology or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like they're an early form of it.
Exactly.
There was particularly in England, France. And
there's a lot of anti-Jew
and maybe even
sentiment
there was
during this time.
Yeah, and there's like some historic reason for that, but a lot of it is like some of it's religious. They accuse him of killing Jesus. some of it is monetary because like Christianity, early Christianity until the 1800s could not actually give loans and do interest. There was no such thing as gaining interest from loans. The Jewish people didn't have that rule.
Yeah. So like, we're going to charge you 19% variable 19%. Interest rate.
And so
you can get it now for 6 months with no interest if you start today.
Yeah. So a lot of people thought of them just as having
predatory loaning practices.
Yeah. So between those two things, it didn't do very good for at least that medieval time thinking about it. I really don't want to just blame it on one thing. There's like 100 things, but like no matter what, it was really relatively unethical that they were like, yeah, you can't practice or be.
They couldn't probably represent themselves in like the legislative body or like the monarchy or whatever. So it was probably easy to make a law that says that you're all banned.
Yeah. And that's just the way it was.
Different times.
Yeah. Different times and not kosher, but that's how it went.
Definitely not kosher.
Definitely not kosher. But here they are. He's looking for maybe some Jews that are celebrating secretly. That actually no one's willing to break. No one.
Well, I mean, look at this guy. If you see a picture of Nicholas Flamel, do you look like you would help this guy if he came to ask you where you could find some secret Jews to translate a book?
I hate when I feel like people look like toads because that's what he has.
He looks 100% like a toad.
Yeah.
He's like Professor Umbridge if she was married to a man.
Yeah.
Basically. I hope that his wife did not look like her.
Purnell.
But Purnell. We don't know what Purnell looks like.
Well, I didn't see a picture of her.
I didn't either. But if you look up what Nicholas Flamel looks like, it's rough.
But he was 80 at that time. So,
Well, he's done good for himself then if it's 80. Well, he should have started taking that elixir of life about 60 years ago. Before he went full amphibian on all of us.
Yeah, he does kind of look like the like lizard people.
It all makes sense.
So yeah, this book came to him in his late 20s. Did you know?
Oh no, I did not know that.
20s.
I knew that his wife was still alive at this time.
Yeah.
And she was there for a lot of the story.
Oh yeah, most of it, right?
So he couldn't translate it. He couldn't find anybody that could translate it.
Well, and again, I want to reiterate: 21 pages, 3 equal 7-page sections.
How are they divided?
Yeah, they 7 pages, every 7 pages. And they were divided with symbols and pictures that were really well done. And a lot of times these pictures involved, again, snakes, crosses, icons of dragons guarding trees and bubbling fountains. So very Adam and Eve kind of.
People in weird positions.
Yeah. We're looking at that copper binding. And it said.
It's obvious that this is old.
Yeah, very old. And he later finds out that there's an author's name there. Abraham, it says Abraham the Jew.
Oh, okay. I did.
Levite, astrologer.
I heard about that.
Yeah.
So is this the Abraham from the Bible or is this a different Abraham?
So that's one of those kind of like arguments is it, some people have said, okay, this is the original like Abraham. From the
father Abraham had many sons.
Abraham. But it could have been, there's also quite a few mystic
people who take up the name Abraham.
Well, it's a very normal name in like the Jewish community, right? So like, it could have just, there's actually a sage from that time era called Abraham the Jew, right?
Oh, well,
so
there it goes. Could have been him.
Contemporary, but he doesn't find this out yet. So while he's looking around, nothing's happening. He's like, okay, well, if Paris has nobody that can speak Hebrew.
If you're going to go by one name, like Abraham, and there's already one guy in the past that's kind of going by Abraham, and you want to differentiate yourself, like make yourself stand out, I would not add the Jew after my name to make me stand out if the other guy was also a Jew too.
Yeah, he's like the father of Judaism.
Right. There's a lot of room for confusion if this is a different Abraham. But confusion is the name of the game for these alchemists, though, as we will see as this episode progresses.
So much so.
So much so.
So he's like, okay, Paris doesn't have anything for me.
Let me try somewhere else.
I'm gonna go on an adventure. This really is like the cool like Indiana Jones part, right? Like he's like, I'm just
gonna take my cloak. And he did not want to take the book with him.
So he copied.
Right. He copied like the first 4 handful of pages, because the book was so valuable and he'd spent so long looking for it that he didn't want to risk the chance of losing it on the journey.
I mean, I get that. I have a few.
I totally get that too. Yeah.
Like, you're going to stay right here, buddy.
Mm-hmm. But
this book sounds weird.
You don't have to copy these things by hand today. You can just like take a picture or whatever. Like even if it's like that, or just copy the document.
Copy it by hand.
Mm-hmm. It would be cool. Absolutely.
That'd be like absolutely legendary. Well, anyway, so he's like, I need to take an adventure. He sometimes he reminds me of Bilbo Baggins.
Yes, he has his look reminds me of Bilbo Baggins too.
This part, call to adventure,
the book fascination,
the books, but then what happens later on, which I'll come back to. I'll come back on to moments that he reminds me of. Maybe J.R. Tolkien used a lot of his inspiration for Bilbo Baggins.
It's possible.
Yeah, I don't know that, but so he's like, all right, well, it's adventure time, and he heads to Spain.
Okay.
Now, that's over 700 miles.
It's a pretty long journey for. Does he walk?
It doesn't mention a horse.
It doesn't mention a horse. I know it mentions walking on the way back.
Yeah. So I'm assuming he walks because when they come back, they don't have any.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
spoiler alert. Yeah, he comes back.
He does come back. So yeah, he has to walk this.
So does he just get like to the town square in Spain and he's just like, hey, does anybody know how to read these letters in this book?
Yeah. So while he's in Spain, he's like doing the same thing. He's asking around. Mm-hmm. He's pretending to be a pilgrim.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I guess in some ways he is. Like, what's a pilgrim looking for? But he's
doing this religious quest sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's what he's doing, this religious quest, because he's like, what the heck is this book? It's
a real religious quest, kind of like. It is one that came to him in a dream.
It's literally a quest.
Yeah, exactly. So does he find anybody that can read it?
No.
No one takes the offer. No one recognizes the language.
Because it's still in Spain. They also have like a few Jewish laws, which are really problematic and like cause like no one's going to be like, yes, I'll help you.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And then they read it and it's like, you are arrested.
Yeah. If you read the first couple lines, it's like, you shouldn't keep reading this. Mm-hmm. You, if you do, and you're not a priest or a scribe, you will be cursed for a long time.
It really did say that.
Like literally the first page said, hey, if you start translating this and you're not a priest or scribe,
you're not worthy. So you're going to undergo this curse.
Yeah, which is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, most definitely. But it probably didn't stop anybody from trying to read it.
It stopped tons of people.
Oh, really?
So many people were about to help him, but then they read that and they're like, actually, no.
I thought it would be like when you go to a website and it's like, are you 21 or over? And you're like, oh, most definitely I am. Yeah, no, who's checking this?
We're thinking of a more superstitious time. They don't have those weird mass things like, hey, give this a thumbs up or you'll be cursed forever. Mm-hmm. They don't have things like that.
Like chain emails.
So they don't have chain emails. So when you get something like this, it's like, oh,
I've only seen this here, so I don't want to curse.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be cursed. Mm-hmm. So he takes them in his couple pages and no one's helping him. So he's like, all right, well, I got to head home because I've been gone for a hot second.
A long time. Yeah.
750 miles walk.
My wife's going to be pissed.
Yeah. If you're thinking you're walking 10, maybe 20 miles a day, if you're really fast,
that's
10 miles is easy. That's about 4 hours.
So we're looking at a couple of months.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. What a vacation.
I don't know if the walking part would be a vacation, but I guess it depends on how often you stop.
Well, and it makes sense that he would act as a pilgrim to Spain because you have Santiago there. Mm-hmm. The Camino de Santiago, the way of St. James. It's where St. James is buried.
Okay.
The apostle, and it's been a common pilgrimage for 1,000 years plus. So that's why he pretended to be a pilgrim.
That's cool.
Yeah. Look, you have all that whipped cream in there still.
Exactly. Well, I didn't want to get it all in my beard if I took it all in the face again.
No, you only had a little bit. Actually, that turns out a lot better. Look at
kind of like mixing together. I really enjoy the butterbeer. I hope I don't get a stomachache from it, but I think it's good.
It's very easy. I'm glad that we did put a little of the water in it, or the sparkling water.
It could have stood to have a little bit more, but not much.
Yeah, because otherwise I think it would be. I think if you like sweet drinks, don't add sparkling water to it. Mm-hmm. if you don't like sweet drinks, add a
little more sparkling water.
Yeah.
Probably about a third as much of the cream soda as we added.
Yeah.
To get to this ratio.
Anyways.
So eventually he's going to find somebody that's going to translate it, right?
Yeah. Well, anyways, I actually have the translation of what the thing that's.
Well, tell me how he finds the guy.
First, any person who reads this text that was not a scribe or a priest would be eternally cursed.
Okay.
That's what it said, eternally cursed. Yeah. So he is in an inn in Lyon.
Leon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he's talking to a French merchant, and the French merchant's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Let me tell you about my adventure."
He probably wants to tell anybody about it that will listen to it.
Anyone. He's like, "Please listen to me. I need someone.
I need an audience.
I need." He just wants to.
I've been dreaming about this book for like 20 years. I can't read it.
I can't read it. I got it, but I can't read it. And
this merchant's like, I know a guy.
Yeah. He's like, absolutely, dude. I know.
Oh, my friend, trust me, bro. My friend really knows how to speak this language. I'm sure he was skeptical, or either he was really gullible and he was like, oh, of course.
Yeah, he's either like absolute yes, or
at this point I would be skeptical and I would be like, okay, well, I've heard this from people before.
He's gonna read the first word and be like, nah.
Yeah, never mind.
But this is his holy quest.
Okay, so he's got to leave no stone unturned.
Yeah, he needs to do it. And
literally,
he's already headed home, so he needs to like deal with it.
He doesn't want to come back empty-handed and be like, "Oh, I don't have anything."
So this merchant introduces him to Maestro Conscious.
Wow, that sounds like a fake name.
What's the name, right?
That's like a username.
Maestro Conscious.
Like on the forums for some kind of new age religion, Maestro Consciousness.
Speaking of new age religion, he's part of Kabbalah, right?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. He's Catholic, but he's raised Jewish. Now, did he become Catholic because he get
of the time?
Trouble,
yes.
Or is this a true conversion?
Who knows?
He definitely is super interested in Kabbalah and knows a whole lot about it, which is.
What is the Kabbalah? Can
Kabbalah
you explain that
is a
to me?
medieval form of Judaism.
Okay.
It's very mystic, and it has a lot of, I would say, unusual traditions, but traditions of the mystics. They're kind of famous for saying things like God is a verb.
Okay. We'll unpack that later.
Maybe not in this one.
No, not in this one. Okay.
that one might be big, but they're very interested in symbols and occultism, like early forms of the occult.
Gotcha.
Later, a lot of their stuff would become part of the occult and Templar and the Masons.
Rosicrucians or something like that. Yeah.
Just all kinds of stuff. But like really, there's a lot of talk about golems and making them.
Oh, okay. I see how this ties into alchemy then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, trying to find out the secrets of the universe. A lot like the early Gnostics.
I was going to ask if it had something to do with the Gnostics, but I didn't want to get us like way off topic or not.
No. It's like,
because these are the Gnostic to Judaism when the Gnostics were Gnostic to Christianity.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That helps put it in perspective for me.
Yeah. So they're very.
I'm surprised I was right about that.
Mysteries.
Okay. Yes.
Life. Yeah. Reading the stars and the magic and like the elements and.
So this guy,
if you go to Books A Million, you can find tons of books on it.
You can't go to Books A Million because it's bankrupt and it's going out of business.
Is it really?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Sucks to suck.
Yeah.
Welcome to the evolution of business.
Amazon,
the powerhouse.
I know.
We should sell a book on Amazon.
We should.
We'd do better.
Probably just get AI to write books on Amazon.
Sometimes I have my students write things in AI, and then I look at them and I'm like,
You didn't
what
write
does this word mean? And they're like,
delve.
they're like, I don't know this word. I'm like, it's weird. You used it 4 or 5 times. In
Exactly.
Your paper.
What do you mean you don't know this word? God.
So strange.
They're not even good at cheating.
Yeah. Well, and gosh, like AI says a lot of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
exactly. Kind of like our president. But we don't get political.
We won't get political.
So he meets the guy and he translates it for him.
Oh, and he starts translating. And he gets super excited about it.
The guy gets excited about it.
Maestro's like,
Maestro's like, wow.
Oh my God, what is this book? Where did you get it?
This is the
Do you have more pages? I need this. And he's like,
you got to come with me.
You got to come with me, bud.
Sorry, I couldn't bring the rest of it.
Yeah, I just copied a couple pages.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take.
If you want the rest of it, then you have to come with me.
But he also gave Nicholas some more lore. He's like, if this is the book I think it is, if this is the book.
He tells him about the Abraham the Jew, right?
He tells him about Abraham the Jew. He also says that he was a Kabbalah scholar and sage, and that this book moves to the age destined for one hand or another, and then it'll disappear and it'll come back and meet people.
That's cool.
Yeah. And so, oh my God, all of a sudden this is like, he's had the dream.
Mm-hmm. He's feeling like he's destined for this.
This is like quest.
He's gone on the quest. He's met the mysterious guy.
Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
Quest line, right? You just met the right person finally. You've been searching.
He talked to the right NPC and they're going to help him fulfill his quest.
And so this older maestro is like, "Ooh, I'll go with you. Let me put my cloak on." You think he's going to be
I'll walk back to France with you.
I'll walk back to France with you.
He's a little less fit than Gandalf, though.
No, because
he's more like Harvey Weinstein going to his trial with a walker.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Or Bill Cosby getting out of prison. Needless to say, he was not in the fittest of states.
No, not at all. And while they were walking, because it's going to be months, he started teaching them how to translate. He taught him that like
ends up being really important.
Yeah, how to translate, but also that like a lot of things that are written in Kabbalah, like symbolism, are in fact that there's symbolism, and you have to read between the lines.
Right.
You have to unweave the web of words that are being created because it's not exactly what it looks like.
That was a main theme that I found when researching this, is that when you find these texts that are related to alchemy and the Philosopher's Stone, is that they love to use pictures, symbolism, to where it kind of sounds like nonsense to the uninitiated, and that would keep people who are unworthy of unraveling the secrets away from it. It would just like completely deflect them. But if you were in the know, then you would know where to look and how to decipher the code.
That seem just like secret occult knowledge?
It does. It seems really cool too.
Yeah. It would be so fun to have a secret language with just a group of people and be like, hey.
Oh, most definitely. Imagine having the secret language, but it's been going on for millennia.
Yeah, forever.
Yes. And your incentive is to like pass down this code, and like the more creative and obscure that you can make it, then the better.
You remember in D&D, if you play a thief or a rogue, they know a thing called thieves' cant.
Mm-hmm. It's like thieves the way that thieves that talk to each other.
Yeah. That's a real thing from Renaissance England.
Okay.
Where the thieves and the like lowlives talk to each other in a fake language.
I didn't know that.
That's a real thing. So this is kind of acting like that, but with really heady people.
I thought that was more like understanding the slang of the day.
No, they have like their own natural secret like world, which is cool.
This is my own like character class that I'm learning things about. That's funny. Okay.
Anyway, so he's teaching him all the things he needs to know. Mm-hmm. He's like, okay, buddy, here's this and around a campfire every night or in the pub.
Because they're walking.
And they're in Europe, so they're probably going to the pub.
Yeah.
And they're like around fire, having their like fish and chips or whatever. They're in Spain, or in France, so probably not that.
No.
And they're like,
whatever they're having.
Wherever they are.
They're having their ratatouille.
Yeah. And they're just indulging totally in like, Nicholas is like absorbing everything. Mm-hmm. And this older maestro is like loving having a student.
I've been waiting my whole life for this.
Can't wait to see this book, man.
Yeah.
I want to see this book.
And he gets so excited about it.
And so excited that he falls ill 100 miles out.
Oh, and he dies.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
But
He's like 5 to 10 days out and he dies.
Wow. Talk about tripping at the finish line.
Yeah. Oof.
But he taught Nicholas how to translate it.
Yeah, Nicholas
doesn't even need this guy anymore. Who's to say Nicholas didn't just like off him, didn't want to share the Philosopher's Stone with you?
I don't know. I
don't think he would do that.
Nicholas seems like
I want to think of him as the good guy.
Yeah, I like Nicholas.
Yeah, me too. He's harmless. Yeah. I mean, you got to be. Well, I don't know if you gotta be, but
I think he seems like it.
He's married and he looks like this. He's got to be a good guy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So he gets back. He starts,
and his wife's like, "Honey,
finally, you're home.
Did you bring home any bread from the store?" And it's like, you've been gone for like 6 years.
They didn't have any kids.
I know. That was very surprising.
Yeah,
they like books more than kids.
Yeah, their kids were books. In fact, his kid was this book.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So he can now translate the rest of the book because he's got it in front of him.
Yeah, well, he has to. That's like now like the thing he has to do. He does actually mourn him. He actually stays there for a few weeks and mourns him.
He makes sure that he has a burial and stuff like that.
Yeah, for a burial. Took the teachings of Maestro and went on. This is where it gets really weird because he translates it, and out of nowhere, him and his wife are making huge donations.
Oh yes, they're being philanthropists to places. Yes,
they're not just putting an extra $20 in the charity.
No, they endowed it was 7 hospitals and hostels, churches, chapels, which are different or something like that. Yeah.
And there was literally places where the poor could come stay as long as they just said an Our Father. Just say an Our Father and you could stay here for free. In fact, there's a restaurant, which I can't remember the name of, in Paris that is one of those hostels that it says, say a Paternoster or an Ave Maria and you can stay for free. Mind you, it's a restaurant now and it's quite pricey.
Yes.
The food looks
It'd
great.
be really cool to go and eat at this restaurant, the Nicholas Flamel restaurant.
Anyways, so all of a sudden, people are like,
where is Nicholas getting all this money from?
He had a crazy epiphany. You know that?
Mm-mm. What was his epiphany?
He wrote about it in his journal, April 25th of 1382.
Okay.
He writes that he discovered it, how to turn mercury into gold. He took a half a pound of mercury and turned it into gold, a tree that bloomed gold.
Oh, yeah, because it kept growing.
Yeah, it kept growing.
Mm-hmm. And his wife witnessed it, I think.
Yep.
I think she was the only one present besides him.
Yep. And all of a sudden, they're not just living off a meager,
No, he was commissioning art and statues, engravings in public works and columns down the streets and stuff like that. And
it was wonderful.
Yes, it was everywhere. Nicholas had his hands on it.
Yeah. It's just all of a sudden and out of nowhere, they were fine. Mm-hmm. And so much so that they even had an audience with the king who noticed them.
Oh, yes.
Holy crap.
Mm-hmm. But how did he get out of... an audience, or do you mean an investigation? Because I heard that he got into an investigation. The king ordered an investigation on him. Okay, so the king was starting to get a little bit suspicious about this guy who was up and coming in this district of Paris and who was commissioning all this artwork and all these hospitals and stuff. So he sent one of his guys to go and check on him. I can't remember what you would call that these days, but it was like an auditor or something like that.
Have you paid your taxes?
Yes. And the auditor shows up and is like, I'm just here for formality to check to see where all this wealth is coming from. And Nicholas ends up bribing the guy with a potion or a bit of elixir that he allegedly made from the Philosopher's Stone. And the guy goes back to the king and is like, oh, all this is above board. They're paying their taxes. Everything's good. No need to look here. And so he totally gets out of it by just giving the vial of the stuff to this guy.
Holy crap. I didn't know that.
I read a story that said that. But that obviously means that he was successful in creating the Sorcerer's Stone.
And actually is very hard to argue against. A lot of times, right now, you're like, oh, well, this is just some legend, guys.
Right.
Yeah, we are legends and libations for a reason. But historically, it's there. Mm-hmm. We still have
There's a record of it.
We still have the buildings that he funded.
Yes.
Quite a few of them, not all of them. But he was known for starting those hospitals.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to argue against his newfound wealth. And
it's not like he just married wealthy.
Right.
Pernell didn't have that much when they married.
No, she didn't have that much. And she died at some point. Am I jumping ahead too much?
You're jumping ahead a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't want to jump ahead.
2 years before him.
Okay. I didn't know that. But I did come across some research that said that her family tried to get the part of the wealth that was left to her away from Nicholas, or not let Nicholas have the inheritance that would have belonged to him for some reason, and they were successful in doing it. So Nicholas's money obviously did not come from
because he
from her.
Because he kept on giving a lot, and that,
yes,
and in his will, which he started creating towards the end of his life, allegedly, he had every penny accounted for, going to different charities mostly, but all of his books went to his nephew.
I don't know that.
Another Hobbit connection. So I guess we can like jump ahead a little bit. Is like, his wife dies 2 years before his alleged death. And he starts writing a will. He looks so healthy for 80.
Of course,
people are like, dude, you look like you're 40. Or,
yeah,
like people are like, he's hot. He's Silver Fox. You working out?
No wonder the king was jealous.
Yeah, King's like, this guy's looking hot and doesn't have to pay his taxes. And he just is, he's fine. Like he's healthy as a horse.
So you don't think that he actually died?
Well, what happens is he then starts preparing for his death. Starts talking about his death a lot, and he pays a huge amount of money to buy a burial stone,
which he designs himself.
Oh yeah, he designs everything on it.
I don't know if he carved it himself.
No, I think he probably got.
He just designed it. He got a strapping young lad to do it. He probably could have done it, but he didn't want to arouse suspicion on himself. But you should look up a picture of this at home. You can still visit.
You can still visit his tombstone. That tombstone does have essentially it talks about like the main text in the middle is like about his like works of charity and the things that he did and where like he distributed his money as alms. On top or in the middle, it says, "O Lord God, I have hoped in your mercy." And on the bottom, "From earth I came, into earth I go back. My soul I give back to Jesus, who forgives sins." It's very, it also has a picture of, it's one of two things. It's either Jesus and Peter and Paul.
Right.
Or it's the three wise men.
At the top, right.
At the top. And this is depending on what you think. Is he giving honor to alchemy, which would come from the Magi?
The wise men.
Three wise men.
Yes.
Or is he just being religious?
So,
there's like a cross on it and a box.
I tried to find movies about the Sorcerer's Stone that were not Harry Potter, and this was really difficult to do because every search that I did would come up with Harry Potter stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So eventually I had to like narrow it down specifically on Google, and I found there were some old like movies from the 70s and maybe the 60s that were in Italian or French. I can't remember, but the only recent one is called As Above, So Below, which is what the second line of the book says, which ends up being a very important phrase that you may have heard because it has a lot to do with like occult circles today.
We're going to have to talk about that book. And maybe this is a good... there's a couple of things I want to cover before, but then we do need to talk about this book.
I want to tell you about the movie. The movie was called As Above, So Below, and it was billed as like a horror film, one of those like found footage things, sort of like the Blair Witch Project or whatever. But it took place in Paris, and they found on Nicholas Flamel's tombstone that we're just talking about that the key, since there's the guy on the left side and he has the key in his back, and it might be St. Peter or somebody, he has the key, and they interpreted that for the movie to mean that the key is on the back since the key was on his back. So they take the tombstone off the wall, and on the back of the tombstone, written in like some kind of invisible ink that is only be able to be seen through fire. So they like take a lighter and then they like light part of the thing, and I guess it has some kind of like phosphorus or something on it, which is important for alchemy. And it like reveals this message that says that he buried the recipe, either the recipe or the stone itself was like underneath Paris where he was buried.
And like the catacombs? In
the catacombs. So they use the catacombs to like access like where Nicholas Flamel is buried, and they find his tomb, and then they find the stone, and then like I don't know. It's a scary movie. It was pretty good though. It's pretty intense. There's a lot. If you're afraid of caves and like cave-ins and like claustrophobia and stuff like that, you would definitely find that it's scary. Which those things definitely scare me. Yeah. I would hate to be buried like underwater like that. That would be terrible.
Oh my God, that'd be so terrible. I'm a little scared of like I like caves and sometimes
the idea of the cave
really narrow.
Oh yeah.
Or if the cave then goes underwater, I'm like,
I don't know about that. Yeah, when's the tide coming in? Yeah, I've watched too many videos of people dying in these sort of instances.
Well, jeez.
Yeah, cave videos are one of those things that freak me out.
Oh, so much so. Yeah, so much so.
Because you don't ever know if somebody's going to get like if somebody passes through that little narrow thing before you and they're fine, doesn't mean that you're not going to be fine or that you are also going to be fine. You could be stuck as well.
Ugh,
Yeah,
I don't like that.
especially if the tide's coming in, the water's rising. Oh,
This doesn't taste like it has alcohol in it.
no, it really doesn't, but I feel it for sure.
Dangerous. So kind of coming back before we talk about the Emerald Tablet, which is going to actually have to be talked about. I want to finish up a little bit of like Nicholas's official story.
Okay.
Nicholas gets obsessed with his death. He makes his tombstone. The tombstone celebrates his charitableness. It looks religious. Now, if it is the three wise men, this changes things, but it does make sense. I think that it's Jesus, Peter, and Paul.
Right. That's what I saw.
The keys and the cross. It's like the keys are just St. Peter, but that's typical of old icons of Peter, the keys to the kingdom.
And the one in the middle is holding like a globe or something, which represents like the world with Jesus.
The King, right?
Yeah.
But if it is the three wise men, there's a lot that we can go into that because like the three wise men are not known for carrying a globe, having keys.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like it's the three wise men though.
No, that's just a few rumors I heard, but I'm like, that doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like those people had the knowledge of.
They were just reaching for those kind of connections.
Yeah. That seems like forcing it.
Yeah, he did have other references, I think, to like alchemy and stuff like that as well. So there was no need to force any extra ones.
Well, and was that really important to him? Because what he needed to do was die well, allegedly. So here he goes. Oh my God! It's it is March 22nd, 1418. His wife had.
I'm gonna die now.
He told everyone his wife died 2 years ago, and no one's seen her. And he's like, "I'm dead.
I'm dead too.
I'm dead.
Well, make sure to bury me right here.
Right, make sure. Yeah, right here, where my tombstone is. It tells you everything." And you're like, "All right,
let's follow instructions."
Cool. He's dead. Goodbye, Nicholas. You were a great neighbor, and he was in his 80s. Looked like he was 50. Was super healthy, as whatever. Well, people, because of what this Sorcerer Stone is, the Sorcerer Stone could first give you a lot of gold. It was the use, you could use it in any alchemy, really, but it also could be the elixir of life.
Remember those like iterations of the colors I was telling you about earlier?
Yeah.
Where it went from black to white to yellow to red. I think when you got to the third one, which was the yellow one, that's when it gained the ability to transmute metals. It might have been the white one, but it definitely wasn't the black one. And then, so you could transmute some metals earlier on, and then later on, you'd be able to transmute them into gold, which was like the highest form of it. And then once you got to the red, and then once you got to the red, that's when it produced the elixir of life. So you had to like go through the stages to purify it, and it unlocked more properties. Yeah.
Wow, that seems like a cool thing.
I know, it was pretty interesting.
Allegedly, him and his wife, like people started rumoring about this. Like
they ransacked where he lived. I think.
Like where is it? Where is it? And no one really believed he was dead. Even his neighbors were like, "Nah, he's not dead. He was doing fine yesterday." And that's weird. Like he's 80, even though he looks like a silver fox. He's actually quite old.
I'm surprised that there must have been some kind of reputation to lead people to try to search his
people,
house.
They go search.
They were turning it upside down, just like trying to look for the recipe or any like remnants of the stone or anything like that.
Yeah, so people really have this rumor there. Well, there's a priest from because he's buried in San. I wrote it here somewhere. Saint Jacques Church. The priest there is like, this is wrong. There's only eternal life in Jesus Christ. You remember the Spanish and in the Pirates of the Caribbean where they destroy the Fountain of Youth. They're like, no salvation. There's no eternal life outside of out of our religion.
It makes sense that some people would have that attitude. Yeah.
And this is how this priest says. He's like, there is no salvation outside of Jesus Christ, and therefore, if there's a Sorcerer Stone, I'm going to prove it wrong.
Okay. How does he do that?
He hires grave diggers to go dig up his body.
I see.
Him and Parnell. They're like, well, go dig up their bodies. Prove to everyone that he's actually dead.
What do they find?
So the grave diggers go there, which they don't steal anything else, which is pretty common for grave diggers. In fact, there's a time in history where people would build cages around graves so that grave diggers couldn't dig them
Wow.
up.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's super, like, you see it actually a lot of times in Scotland. There's a whole bunch of them that are still there.
There was that time where they were like doing studies on bodies, like cadavers, where you would get paid to bring in cadavers for medical purposes to research. And there was a lot of grave robbing going on where they would take the whole bodies.
Yeah. These ones
recently deceased.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just stuff.
Sense. Yeah. The old Egyptian treatment.
Well, they're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and dig this up for this priest who's paying us a pretty good bit of money. They get there. They're digging through the night while no one's looking, like, there's some more dirt. They finally hit that. They hit that wood. They rip those off of his Amparnell's coffins. Ripped off. You know what they find?
What?
Absolutely nothing.
There's nothing in the graves?
Nothing in
Wow. Look at that. Or don't look at it because it's not there. You can't look at it.
It is absolutely true that Nicholas
The graves
Flamel,
were empty.
This is only a year after.
Uh-huh.
Nicholas Flamel and Parnell faked their own death.
Obviously faked their deaths.
Why?
Yes.
They have no mortal enemies.
They have no children.
They have no children.
They're not in any debts or anything like that.
They have money, but they fake
Why would they fake their death then?
Oh my God, this went ballistic. Everyone in Paris was like, oh my God,
so there were people were following this story then. It was like a tabloid sort of thing.
Yeah, it was like all over their Instagrams. All over their Facebooks, right?
Right.
Holy smokes. And that's historically true. We can't find, no one knows where their bodies were buried.
And they obviously went through a lot of preparation ahead of time.
He spent so much money on his burial and funeral and just to not be there.
Yeah, so it seems awfully intentional to create all this pomp and circumstance over his burial and his funeral to make it believable for people.
Totally, right? Like, this seems so... So
do we have any ideas of what might have happened to them instead?
Oh.
Are you telling me that you got a lot, or that this is going to be a segue into another segment?
Let's talk about that book.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about the book first.
The book is called... The book that he might have actually found is a book called The Emerald Tablet, which there are quite a few Latin and Arabic copies from the medieval world.
That we have today?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you can go read The Emerald Tablet. Now, what I do think is that maybe his was different.
Maybe it was authentic.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe his is authentic. In fact, it is even that the typical one is actually written in 3 parts. Let me see if
that tracks with the 3 segments
of
the book that he got.
There's 3 different books. The Book of the Secret of Creation.
Okay.
The Secret of Secrets.
A bit vague.
Yeah. And the Book of Alchemy of Hermes.
Okay.
Now,
Hermes, the Greek god.
Yeah. So there are 2 running rumors on who this book was originally created by.
Okay, what are the rumors?
One of them is Hermes Trismegistus.
Trismegistus.
Hermes
Trismegistus.
It's all Greek to me, guys. It means thrice greatest. And this Hermes is actually a mix of Hermes, the god of the messenger god, and the Thoth, the god of the moon, wisdom, knowledge, writing, hieroglyphics, science, magic, art,
from Egypt.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there is rumor that there was some ancient Egyptian priest that would create a stone that could create gold and the elixir of life.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So
I think I read about this a little bit, is that Thoth or Toth or whatever his name is.
Thoth.
Something like that. It's like Thoth.
Thoth.
Yeah, Thoth.
Yeah, whatever.
Is that he wasn't actually a god, is that he came from Atlantis. Is that one of the yes, one of the explanations is that he brought this knowledge with him from Atlantis, because they were going to have their cataclysm thing like we talked about in the Atlantis episode, and that he was going to use that to help seed civilization in other places.
Immortal, so of course
he's an immortal. Yes. Right? He would be a god to the other people.
Yeah. And so
that's a little tie-in for previous
You guys
episodes.
haven't listened to our Atlantis episode?
It's one of our best ones, I think.
It's fun. It's very fun. It's a good episode. Allegedly. We think
Exactly.
so. But this weird mix of a god or a sage or a prophet. He's also again associated with the Greek Hermes, which is a messenger, divine messages being sent.
And these could have been the same person.
Yeah,
possibly.
Same person, same thing. Are also from the Kabbalah tradition, Enoch himself.
Okay.
Have you ever read the Book of Enoch?
No, we talked about this in, was it the temple or
Was this Stone of Destiny stuff?
No, it's before the Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, God.
Yes, Ark of the Covenant, first episode.
So, wow, that's been some time.
Enoch
I know
stuff
it's only
was
been 9
out
episodes,
there.
but,
Yes.
Enoch is, the Book of Enoch's great, but like this is, according to Kabbalah tradition, Enoch is the one who wrote this.
Okay. I can see how they could have kind of all be blended into one figure.
Oh, wisdom, divine truth coming to like the regular people. You can see it. Yeah, it totally is there. But
so he wrote this emerald tablet.
Yeah.
And he took it with him to Egypt.
Yeah, and then Egyptians copied it, and that emerald
spread through like the Middle East a little bit.
Yeah,
I think.
and again, if we follow like what we know Nicholas now knows is it finds destiny to certain people, and Nicholas was one of these people to receive that book.
And this book is thousands of years old because I think that it must have been intended to be found in the Middle East at one point because there's this other guy named like Gerber, I think is like his English or like Latin name, but he is a real historical figure. And he was one of those ones that passed his writing on in like symbols and allegory, and he had like pictures and like hidden meanings throughout.
Yeah.
To where he allegedly was one that could make the Sorcerer's Stone, but he also did like the golems thing that we were talking about earlier. He was known for making those as well.
Those golems,
and
they would be the torment of people.
I think he did something like he was like able to create like little lizards or something like that was like one of the like creating life things that he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he was an early alchemist.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so I found last night when I was looking at stuff like this, and this is like right before we record, the day before, is that there was a Wikipedia article called like lists of alchemists, and how I had not seen this yet. There was hundreds of alchemists on here, there segmented like geographically, and I was like, I have no time to go through these hundreds of alchemists. So, ladies and gentlemen, we picked about the most interesting 5 or so that we've researched and that we're telling you about.
Yeah, we can't do more than that. We are just 2 of us.
Yes, there's only 2 on our team here.
But if you start throwing money at us, maybe we'll have more.
We could hire somebody.
We'd hire someone.
Yes, Ghostwriter.
And then we'd ignore their notes and just do whatever we want.
We're going off script.
Yeah. So they.
So this guy used the emerald tablets. It was passed down.
Yeah,
for people who are meant to find it.
So allegedly from this work, the process of creating a Sorcerer's Stone is called the Seal of Hermes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and it takes about it's all the elements that you use for it are closed into a glass bottle and heated up, which would become a place of tension later on by one of the later alchemists.
That sounds pretty easy.
It's heated up for 30 to 40 days.
That's not even that long compared to some of the recipes.
Yeah.
Does he say what the ingredients are in that?
Nope, no recipes.
That's a bit vague.
Yeah, so that's what we got from that. But it does fit. You know, it has the 3 sections.
Yeah,
it's an old book. It's made
in that language from the time that was also spoken then.
Which Maestros told Nicholas that this is the language that Abraham and Moses spoke.
Okay.
Is it?
Is this like Aramaic? Would that be what they spoke, or
that would have been some kind
Hebrew?
Of Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew, or something. I mean, language is weird.
Yeah, language is weird. Like how we couldn't understand people that spoke English if it was like 1,000 years ago, but it's also English.
Sometimes I give my giving my students Shakespeare is one thing. Sometimes I give them Hemingway, and they're like, "Oh my God, who is this?" I'm like, guys, he was like yesterday.
That's funny. If you live forever, it would be like yesterday.
I love the whipped cream head on there now.
Yeah, it totally looks like a real beer.
Look how awesome that looks.
That's
guys.
picturesque.
If you guys are watching this on YouTube, this drink just looks fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the butterbeer.
Yeah. So There was a guy 300 years later from Nicholas Flamel.
Which guy is this?
His name's Paul Lucas.
Okay.
That's
a very like modern name.
Right. It's
What's up, Paul Lucas?
Hey, Paul Lucas, get over here. We got a question about football.
He has a double name too, like Logan Paul, where it's like two first names. Ricky Bobby.
Exactly. Right.
What did Paul Lucas do?
Well, yeah, 300 years after Nicholas Flamel, he's like hanging out at a pub, drinking a good beer, having a good time.
Butterbeer.
Yeah, he's having a butterbeer, he's enjoying life. He's happy. And he meets a couple of guys from the Middle East, Arabs, is what the text says. And one of them he starts getting into a long conversation with. And this guy goes into detail. He's like, I know Nicholas Flamel. Let me tell you about him. He gives
like currently.
Yeah, I know him now. And he's telling him great details about his personal life.
Well, his buddy named Nicholas.
Yeah. He's like,
wow.
He made it. He made the Sorcerer's Stone, and he's lived.
He's still alive today.
And there are tons of rumors before this. Mm-hmm. There's like rumors every 10 years.
Of people who've seen him or knew him.
And Parnell. Yeah, they see both of them. And so this isn't unusual. I mean, it happens, but he's like, yeah, no, I'm friends with him. In fact, I also have made a Sorcerer's Stone.
Oh, come on, buddy. You made it yourself, or did he share it with you?
Oh, he definitely shared it with him.
He definitely let you copy the notes on that one.
He's like, look at the test answers.
Yeah.
Well, and he gives him all the intimate details of Nicholas.
So it's pretty convincing.
And he's like, and he actually says, there are 7 of us who are immortals.
Oh.
And we meet every 7 years to talk about our adventures and what we've done. And
this was Paul Lucas.
Paul Lucas met a guy who says this to him.
Okay. I wonder if that guy could be somebody else from one of our stories.
Paul Lucas does, in the end, think that this actually was Nicholas Flamel giving him like a confessions.
Oh, you think so? Okay, so it was real Nicholas Flamel.
Yeah, but just pretending to be someone else so he could tell a story. And he knew such intimate detail that it was like...
He was telling him about himself, not about somebody else.
Yeah,
right,
but like from third person point of view, right? But what I thought was crazy, there's 7 of them that meet every 7 years.
I wonder...
To be the 7 immortals.
Yeah.
The 7, that reminds me of the boys, right?
Yeah.
7.
There's something else that I want to go into in a little bit, and I'll bring it back around to these 7 immortals if you don't let me forget.
Do you need any more whipped cream? Whipped cream is lasting a long time.
I would like some more whipped cream before we move on into the next segment. I know Jesse would too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like... It doesn't disperse. It's like it's taken the elixir of life itself.
I mean, when you pour it through, it mixes into it, but like not much.
No, it doesn't. You kind of have to like bite your first little bit. Like,
yeah. I'm like, I don't think
it tastes so good though.
Oh, so good. Mm. You guys should make this butterbeer at home.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So speaking of those 7 immortals.
Yeah, which is weird. Paul Lucas is like, hey, there's 7 others.
I'm just going to tell this random guy that's asking me about it, about the most secret thing in the entire world.
There's a secret like group that's like maybe at every big event in the world. Oh my God.
We're just going to spill the beans to any random person that'll listen.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like somebody just wants attention or to feel important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But if that's not the case, and there are actually 7 immortals, then I've got a pretty good case for a couple of them.
Ooh,
that may have also come up with their own Philosopher's Stone. If Paul Lucas could do it,
well, Paul Lucas heard about it.
Yeah, if Paul Lucas heard about it, then this guy called the Count of Saint Germain definitely did it. Have you heard about him?
I've heard his name mostly because there's an alcohol named after him.
Okay. I think there's like a contemporary music person called him too, but
nice.
I don't think that it's the Saint Germain that we're going to talk about. So this guy named the Count of Saint Germain, since he might be an immortal, so his like birthday might be a little bit obscured, but he's from around the time of the 1691, and lived allegedly until like 1784 or so.
Mm-hmm.
But so he was this aristocratic, well-spoken, charismatic guy in like the Renaissance high society Europe. And he could allegedly, like, he could speak dozens of languages, like
I mean, that was somewhat,
At least a dozen, maybe more.
God, that's so many languages.
Exactly.
Stupid.
Me too. When you read about some of these people and how much they could speak, like how many languages they could speak, it really makes us feel dumb.
Yeah,
how much we rely on like autocorrect on like and typing and stuff like that.
If you guys saw my notes,
sad.
you would be like, that English teacher spelling half of this wrong.
Exactly.
But you guys can't see it, so you don't know if I'm lying or not.
So in addition to being a prolific linguist, Saint Germain was also a talented musician. He was like a virtuoso violinist, and he was a composer, and he was a painter, and he was a philosopher.
He literally did everything.
He did everything. Yes. And so
he had too many hobbies.
They think that the reason that how he got so good at everything was that he may have lived for like 300 years or more.
Oh, well, that's convenient.
Leads us to believe that he may have invented his own Sorcerer's Stone.
Wow.
And there's a little bit of evidence for this. One of his favorite places to turn up and to be involved in the high society was in France. And he would attend the court of whoever the king was at the time. I can't remember because I'm always terrible at like the Louis the 16th or whatever they were. But it was around the time of Madame du Pompadour.
Okay.
Was the mistress of the king at the time.
Ooh.
And they would have these like lavish dinner parties, and Saint Germain was able to entertain everyone at the dinner party because no one ever saw him eat. So he didn't have to eat, allegedly, while everyone else was. So he could just tell you these extravagant stories of anecdotes and like historical events that had such rich detail that as if he was there for them.
Like you'd be able to tell them like about 100 years ago.
Yes, about things that had happened hundreds of years ago. So obviously he was like a very captivating audience. And you may have heard of this guy, Casanova.
I've heard of Casanova.
Casanova was a real guy.
I didn't know he was real.
Yes. Oh, yes, he was real. And
when I think Casanova, I just think like this kind of like suave.
Yeah, like suave ladies man. Yeah, so Casanova was a real guy, and he was a contemporary around the same time as Saint Germain. Mm-hmm. And he was actually Saint Germain's rival because Casanova was jealous of how captivating Saint Germain was at these dinner parties and how much he could get the attention of like the ladies of the court, because Casanova, like legendary ladies man, is that he wanted all the attention on him. But since Saint Germain didn't have to eat, that he was able to just like tell these like riveting tales over and over again. And Casanova was just like sitting over there just steaming, getting jealous because they didn't think that he was as interesting. Yep. He was not as interesting as the guy that had lived like 1,000 years.
Oh, well,
and like Casanova alleges.
Do you know some of the stories that he would tell about, like what years or?
Let's see. I want to say that there was a possible. He was talking about like things that happened in the Bible and things like that, and like things that happened with kings and like other monarchies before. But I'm
probably like Rome and stuff too.
Yes, and that gets me into like one of the possible explanations for how Saint Germain was able to live so long. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, but I'll come back. Is that I didn't know about this. I don't know if this is in the Bible or not, but apparently there's this myth or this account of this guy who, when Jesus was carrying the cross to the hill where he was crucified. Mm-hmm. I can't think of what the hill is called, but you can probably help me with that.
Golgotha.
Yes, that. Okay, so he was carrying it through the town, and this guy stepped out of the crowd to like mock Jesus or something, and his name was Cartophilus. And Jesus said something to him about he will be cursed to walk the earth until he comes again. And they think that Saint Germain might be this Cartophilus guy who was granted immortality
as a punishment
to have to walk the earth forever until the next time that Jesus comes back.
I wonder where that comes from.
I don't know, but that doesn't really have anything. Yeah, that doesn't really have anything to do with the Philosopher's Stone necessarily. But I will tell you some things that just Saint Germain does have to do with the Philosopher's Stone that give it a good, give it some credibility. So I think it was like, I want to say Louis the 16th or whatever, but I'm probably wrong about the number. But a Louis in Paris during this time, Saint Germain ingrained himself so much to the court that Louis gave him his own apartment there, and he paid for Saint Germain to set up a laboratory in the court or like in his apartment that he could use to produce whatever it was that he was doing. And allegedly instead of eating, that Saint Germain always drank from like a flask or like a vial that he carried with him, kind of like how Mad-Eye Moody does it in Harry Potter when he's drinking the Polyjuice potion. So Saint Germain also was able to endear himself to the king.
Also mean he was an alcoholic,
right?
But we're not. This is Legends of Libations, not.
That's funny. Not Alcoholics Anonymous.
So yeah, there we go.
Okay, so one of the ways that he was able to endear himself to the king was that the king had this diamond, and it was a really large diamond. I don't know how big it was, like carat wise or whatever, but it was very valuable. But it had an imperfection in it, which like greatly reduced the cost of it, or like how valuable it was. And Saint Germain told him that he could get rid of the imperfection in the diamond if he just let him borrow it. And apparently, the king let Saint Germain have the diamond. And a month later, he comes back with a slightly bigger diamond, but it was perfect. And it had no blemishes or imperfections in it. And so one of the alchemy practices that he was able to do, apparently, was he was able to combine diamonds from, like, he could take smaller diamonds and make them all into one bigger diamond, or he could remove imperfections from other gemstones.
Interesting.
Yes, and you could see this in like the way that he dressed and the way that he appeared. His appearance in court is that he would have all these elaborate costumes or like outfits, but they would have gems sewn into every single one of his outfits.
Interesting.
Which obviously like hinted that he had acquired an enormous amount of wealth.
He had some,
but he allegedly had no job. He had no job that anyone was able to find, and he had no bank accounts that anyone knew about. So
interesting.
So basically, it's this charismatic guy, very talented, traveling from high society Europe to high society Europe, and with an enormous amount of wealth that he carries with him in like gems and gold and stuff like that, can speak a bunch of languages, is really proficient at the violin, and likes to insert himself in very important historical incidences. One of them was that he was taken prisoner, or that he was arrested in England during the time of the Jacobite rebellion.
Oh, wow.
And
that's quite a bit later. Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure when the Jacobite rebellion is, but he was taken prisoner, and they released him without having to produce any like papers or documentation or identification or even like give his real name. So they're just like let him go.
They're like, yeah, you can go.
Apparently.
Oh, wow.
And another thing is that he possibly was in Russia to help Catherine the Great when she was able to seize her throne from her husband, Peter. And so like, this is him just like appearing at different places. Like we've got France,
yeah, different
we've got England,
history.
We've got Russia as well.
What year did you say he was born?
Around the 1691.
Okay. Yeah.
Allegedly. Yes, but yeah, like this was just the time that he was like popping up all over Europe. Like sometimes he would disappear and he would lay low for a few years and no one would see him at all, and then he would come up again. And
yeah, I totally did. I did the little bit I read about him, which that was it, is that he just appeared in these great scenes where big things were happening and then would disappear again.
Yes, and then he would just be gone.
Wow.
So it brings us back to the thing that you were saying earlier about the immortals.
Yeah.
And you remember how we talk about Helena Blavatsky on almost all of our episodes, and how she has the Theosophy religion that she founded. And so she claimed, she lived in like the 1800s. Yeah. She claims that Saint Germain is one of the ascended masters, quotes around ascended masters, but they are like a group of, I think, probably 7 or so immortals that live forever, and they meet and like run the world or whatever. But I don't know if she's borrowing that from like what you're talking about, because she came later, or if there's actually some weight to it.
Actually 7 immortals just ruling the world. I feel like we're getting a heavy conspiracy here, but
I don't know. That would be nuts. I'm trying to think of some really cool stuff about Saint Germain though that I haven't told you. They're like the articles about him are pretty much like endless. Like he was there for tons of stuff that happened in Germany, Poland, like Italy, all throughout the middle of Europe during this time period that he was there. And so I can't list them all, But a couple of really interesting ones that stood out to me, and this one blows my mind, is that there is an account, like a real historical account of all the way in Philadelphia, in America at this time, is when the guys were getting together to sign the Declaration of Independence. This is in 1776 in Philadelphia. Is that this mysterious figure popped up at the end of the room when everybody was kind of deliberating on like whether we want to do this or not. Do we want to like actually fight the English? Yes. Are we going to do this? And this mysterious figure gave this like really impassioned speech, sort of like Aragorn does when they're at the Black Gates. And he's like, all right, we're going to like do this now. And after this person gave this speech, that like John Hancock stood up and rushed forward and like grabbed the quill, and he was like, "I'm signing my name." And then after him, that they couldn't. This is the quote: is that they couldn't even put the quill down. That people were just like taking it out of their hands to sign the Declaration of Independence. And then when they went to like confront the guy or to thank him for the speech that he gave, that he was gone, and that his appearance looked like the accounts of Saint Germain.
Ooh,
yes, that he was this guy who appeared to be 45 years old. And that they didn't know anything else about him.
I like how associated with revolution he is, like with the Jacobites.
Yes, with the Russians. Yeah.
Saint Germain sounds badass.
Yeah, I'm a big Saint Germain fan, even though I don't know very much about him.
Yeah, and then what does it matter? Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, so he was able to, or like supposedly able to do this transmutation of metals into gold, and he would also...
Which would make sense where he gets his wealth.
Right. And he would also, he was very appealing to the ladies of court because he would either...
Rasputin.
Right. Yes. I was going to ask you, who does this remind you of? And he definitely reminds me of Rasputin. He's like the Rasputin that had a bath sort of thing.
Remember how Rasputin kept living?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Oh, my God.
I mean,
all circles here, guys. All circles.
I'm pretty sure there's a gap in here where Rasputin could totally fit into this. It's before the last guy.
Yeah.
But he had that look of like someone who had lived for a long time. Rasputin did. But getting back on Saint Germain, he would promise the ladies of court, and I think he produced it for them in a few instances, is that he would give them this like elixir or this potion or something that he promised would make them look young, or like it would preserve the beauty that they already had.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this like leads me into this question that I wanted to talk about, was like, what can the stone not do? Is like, okay, so we know what the stone can do is the stone can like turn metals into gold, and it can produce the elixir of life, which will make you live forever.
Yeah.
But the things that it can't do is that it's not, he said, Saint Germain, he said that he would not be able to reverse aging. On someone that asked him to, if this potion would like make them young again, they could not become young again with the potion that he made, with the elixir from the stone.
Yeah. And
another thing that it would not be able to reverse dying is that even if you had someone who has recently deceased, using the elixir on them would not be able to bring them back from the dead.
So it's not like the resurrection stone.
No, it is not like the resurrection stone.
Okay, fair enough.
And that was the interesting thing that happened in that As Above, So Below movie when they actually found the stone, is that they were able to like use it to kind of like very rudimentary, just like kind of like slash and burn sort of thing. They're like, oh, okay, let's put a little bit of the stone on it and like grind it off on you, and it would like heal their wounds and stuff. But then when one of the characters died, they weren't able to like bring them back with the stone.
You know that quote, as
above, so below.
It comes from the Emerald Tablet, which you can read. There's a lot of translation. Isaac Newton actually did a translation. There's quite a few English versions. We have a lot of old copies in Latin and Arabic, but we don't have whatever original version that
came from.
Nicholas has. But that whole quote comes from
the Emerald Tablet.
Version, a short version of like the first paragraph that essentially says that everything is an adaptation of the eternal, the sun. Mm-hmm. That all things are an adaptation of it, and that all things are created through it and go back to it. And it's a strange force, Star Wars kind of thing.
And like as like the cosmos is like a representation of like our brain mapping, like the neurons and stuff like that. It's like things that are in like the heavenly realms are also inside of us.
Yeah, also inside. It's very
up for interpretation, but it is also it's like very mystical.
But the things that are up there are also.
It's very easy to fit into things, but it is also very profound at the same time. I like to think about that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought a cool little quote.
I've only got one more thing on Saint Germain, besides the fact that he was documented as being a representative for the Freemasons at their like annual Freemason convention that they have. Yeah. I guess like all the Freemasons like get together at some point. I don't know, probably on like Epstein Island or something like that. Once a year. And they decided to send Saint Germain this one year in the 1700s. Mm-hmm. But okay, so you would think that he would disappear for like several years at a time before he would pop back up again. Yeah. And can you guess when the most recent sighting or alleged appearance of Saint Germain was?
1901?
You're really close, even more recent than that. In the 1970s,
wow,
this guy appeared on
a wild guess.
Well, you're pretty close because this guy in the 1970s appeared on a French talk show, and he alleged that he was Saint Germain, and supposedly on the show he turned some lead into gold in front of the audience.
Wow.
Yeah, and after that, it was revealed that he was actually some actor who went by the name Richard Chonfrey. And he ended up committing suicide a few years later. But
suicide.
I went to watch, I hunted down the clips from the French television show, and the auto translation that YouTube provides was not very satisfying because it was like super grainy and stuff like that. And like I couldn't really understand what they were talking about. Yeah. But like they were talking about like elixir of life and living forever and stuff like that. But I didn't get to a part in this. I watched the whole thing that I could find on YouTube, but he didn't demonstrate any ability to change metal into gold or anything. But it was interesting. Like he was like a handsome guy who was like, I guess kind of like an actor or like maybe like a minor actor or a stage actor or something.
Do you think that if one person has the Sorcerer's Stone that they can still die?
I would imagine they can die.
Yeah, like an act of war or something.
Yeah, or like act of violence. Like they're just not subject to like the natural causes of like the breaking down of your cells or whatever it is that causes you to age. That's what it stops.
Okay.
But I don't think that it like if you got mortally wounded, I don't think that it would heal your wound. But if you had it with you, then maybe you were able to like use it on you.
Use your salt grinder.
Yeah.
Yes. Put some salt on the wound.
There we go. That's where that phrase comes from. We found it here, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to
Legends and Libations.
Right?
Yep. All right. So I think that's all that I've got on Saint Germain. He's super interesting. You can find actual musical compositions from him, like for the violin and like for like a trio, a quartet or something like that. Cool. I can't remember like the actual music that he composed is written down. None of the
chance did you listen to any of it?
No, they were just listed like on a thing that I found, but none of his artwork survived. And one of the interesting things is that how like why Casanova was getting jealous of him is because he would say things like he had exhausted music so much that there was nothing more to learn about music, and that he got bored with learning music.
He just didn't know about rock.
Yes,
and roll.
Exactly. And then
he was not at the
Same thing with like languages. Is like
he was like one of the big rock and roll bands. So
that would be crazy. I did listen. One of my favorite podcasts, shout out Mysterious Universe, is that they made a joke about how the similarities of Jay-Z in Saint Germain, like Jay-Z doesn't age, but he's like also in all these situations and stuff like that, like through the past for the culture for the past like 30 years. Yeah. So he completely changed his appearance and now he goes by Jay-Z.
So who's another one of these 7 that you might have found?
Okay. So there's this other guy and
I noticed you have a big question mark on his head.
All right. So for this guy, his name's Fulcanelli. I don't know if you ever heard of Fulcanelli before. I don't think I had heard of Fulcanelli, even though his name does sound kind of vaguely familiar. It's a pseudonym probably. And you know how when you go to like Wikipedia or whatever, and it'll have the dates where they lived and they died at the top, and it'll be like, it'll say like C, not for like BC, AD, CE sort of thing like that, but it'll be like circa day or something like that. It'll be like, this is like around the time. Okay, so for Fulcanelli, it has a different thing. It says FL 1920s.
What does that FL mean?
FL means that they flourished during the 1920s, but we don't know when they were born or when they died. Yes, that was the time, the prime time that they were known to have lived was during this time period. So this guy is so mysterious that there was even
not even a birth.
There was a new term that I had to learn for his documentation for being alive during the 1920s. But
weird.
Okay, so Fulcanelli is like a pseudonym. Probably it probably means something to do with Vulcan. and which is from like Greek mythology.
Okay.
Yeah, so he like took inspiration from that, and El, which is like the end of his name, has some other meaning which I can't remember right now. But he only has 2 published works. One of them is called The Mystery of the Cathedrals, which is sort of like a Da Vinci Code sort of type thing.
I heard about
it thinks that a lot of alchemical recipes are encoded in the architecture of these cathedrals around Paris, especially Notre Dame, and that they hint at the recipe to make different alchemical things like this Sorcerer stone. But so Fulcanelli actually has like some really interesting evidence behind him, and he's one of the coolest stories I think is because he allegedly, I say this every time, but he demonstrated alchemy in front of witnesses on a couple of occasions. Where twice he had an audience of a few people, and one was in 1922. He was able to use some shavings of his Philosopher's Stone to turn 100 grams of lead into gold. And people saw him do it.
Okay.
And then in 1937, he had a bigger audience that involved like a chemist and some other reputable folks. And he transmuted 225 grams of lead into gold, and he did 100 grams of silver into uranium. And the uranium part is interesting because what is uranium involved in is in the production of nuclear power.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, exactly. And so this leads us to this documented fact that there was the predecessor in America to the CIA was called the OSS. It's like the Operation of Secret Services or something like that.
I feel like they're like the punishment people at school.
Yes. OSS. Yeah. You're thinking ISS, like the in-school suspension thing. Yes. And it also sounds like what the Nazis had too, because they had like the OS or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't think of what that stood for. But before the CIA, it was the OSS. I think it was like the Office of Special Services. Yes. The obvious socialists. They're right there, ladies and gentlemen. They're obvious. Okay. So the OSS had a file on Fulcanelli, and they were interested in him because he, in 1937, he showed up at this laboratory in Paris where this French chemist was working on an early forms of nuclear weapons. Because you know how we had that nuclear arms race sort of thing at the end of, or like kind of in the beginning of World War II. Like we were all different countries were looking, of like what we could do with particle physics and things like that. Like how could we form a nuclear weapon or like use this to kill more people more effectively. And so this mysterious figure, like in a trench coat and whatever, comes up to this guy.
He's always in a trench coat.
At this laboratory. And he gives him like a warning about the dangers of using nuclear weapons. And he's like, this is not the first time that nuclear weapons have been used on humanity, and it won't be the last time. But like, it's like a Pandora's box thing. And once you open it, that there's no going back. Like it's going to create a chain reaction. We could mutually assured destruction, all that stuff. And he gives them this like very cryptic warning about the dangers of nuclear. Yeah.
What happens.
And so like that guy was supposed to go back and tell his superior or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that this person was killed, I think, by the Nazis. And
they're always appearing.
Exactly. So I don't think that the 2 guys that were told his warning survived at all. So they weren't like part of the Manhattan Project later on. And I don't know if this warning actually like reached people like Albert Einstein and the other ones that worked on the Manhattan Project.
Yeah.
But so like this guy obviously showed up and he like knew what he was talking about enough to the point where like they took him seriously enough to have an OSS investigation on him. But they seemed satisfied with the result that after the war or like the occupation of France, I think, that he was missing and that he couldn't be found. So they kind of assumed that he was dead. But as we can see, like, and this was like, he appeared in his 80s. Like he seemed like he was like a pretty elderly chap at this point in his life. But he had one acolyte or pupil, apprentice. There you go. I obviously clicked on the synonym button on Microsoft Word when I was making this. Yes, apprentice. Okay, so he had one apprentice, and there was this guy named Eugene Consolite, and Eugene helped him publish his works. Later on, he might have given him the manuscript for it or whatever. But Eugene eventually, he was there for both of the transmutation demonstrations, and he when Fulcanelli disappeared, he cut ties with Eugene as well because he had to like completely go off the grid. He died. Yes, he died.
Yeah, allegedly, he died.
Yes, he went full off grid. But years later, I think it was like 15 years later, this guy delivered a message to Consulate in Paris, and it was like, you need to go to this castle, this like retreat place that's somewhere high up on a mountaintop or whatever. And this was in the 50s, in the 1950s.
Wow.
So Consulate goes to this castle on this mountain that this guy told him about, and there he sees Fulcanelli. But Fulcanelli has started to age backwards, and he looks different.
Benjamin Button.
Yes, he started to Benjamin Button. He started to.
He thought of the next part of it. He probably made the stone a different color.
Exactly. Yes. Not only did Fulcanelli appear younger, but he appeared androgynous, to where he was starting to like take on like female characteristics as well, and to stop looking
weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So it kind of hints that he was able to transcend like the final or like the next step in the stone.
He's like just going, becoming what he wants.
Right. So he was not even at the point where it was like slowing down your life. He was actually to the point where it was like taking him backwards and turning him into some androgynous being. So I don't know, take that with what you may.
Oh my goodness.
But he did the same thing that, let's see, I think it was Nicholas Flamel, is that they called the parts of the stone that they used, they called it projection powder, where they would just like file some of it off and like grind it down, and then they would combine that with other ingredients or like with the metal that they wanted to transmute or to make the elixir out of.
So one of the weird things about the 7 or even the 2 characters they mentioned is both of your, I didn't really study either of them very much because I knew you would give me some sense of it. But the other theory is that Nicholas Flamel is
these guys.
Yes. He appears in different centuries as different people.
Because they're spaced out enough to where that he could take on a new identity.
Yeah, and he needs to. He needs to.
He can't go by Nicholas Flamel forever.
He needs to off himself and become a new person. Which is interesting.
You see that
in the modern day.
Well, the interesting, it definitely would. You see that with Nicholas Flamel. He's like, it's like the origin story. The book comes to him and he's learning how to do it and stuff like that. And he's just getting his foot in the door.
Yeah.
And then with Saint Germain, you have him like living like the lavish part of it. And being like, what would you do if you had a limited time? You would learn how to do all these skills and acquire all this wealth and insert yourself into all these situations. And then with Fulcanelli, you kind of have like the end of it where he's like, I'm going to warn you guys about the dangers of nuclear physics, and I'm going to go become a woman on a mountain.
It reminds me of the witches from Macbeth.
Exactly.
Warning people about what they.
I mean, because it makes you think about like, what would you do if you lived forever? Because like things would become boring.
You would just
to
try
you
everything.
After a while.
You try everything.
Exactly, and that's where Fulcanelli is.
Yeah. I wonder what he's doing now.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Good question. He's definitely one of the most mysterious ones because with Saint Germain, how you have all of these documented accounts of him popping up and doing stuff. With Fulcanelli, you have almost nothing. It's like they don't know what he looks like. They don't have any pictures of him.
And he's so recent.
Right. I don't know.
I had one other guy, but I didn't find him very
compelling.
Oh, no, like he didn't find the Sorcerer's Stone. He just was a scientist.
Was it Paracelsus?
Yeah, Paracelsus. He absolutely was interested in Philosopher's Stone and called, he said the Philosopher's Stone was actually an undiscovered element called alkalihest, which I'm probably saying that wrong.
I've never heard of that.
And he said it was the basis of all other elements.
Okay.
He is known for creating laudanum, which is just opium.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like,
laudanum.
Well, yeah.
Laudanum. Yeah. That's what they talk about in, was it From Hell, probably? When he's not like saying that he's doing the opium. I think that's what they call it.
It's like a medicine and it makes you feel better. It's called the Stone of Immortality, but it does just make you feel it's a tincture. He's really the one who invented the whole tincture idea. Rather than giving a full dose, give percentage, like a 10% dose. And
that was one of the things that was like a real scientific discoveries that came along with the stone.
Absolutely, like a real scientist giving to the scientific community. He also wrote on the errors of those who before him. He's like, if you're looking for the Sorcerer's Stone in nature,
don't listen to these guys
or any of these. They're dumb. Here it is. But he really was more of a scientist. I feel like there's no more to say about him. He's definitely not a immortal. Yeah. I think the same could be said about Isaac Newton, who was so interested in translating the Emerald Tablet, right?
Yeah, Isaac Newton, and he lived from 1642 to 1727. And we think of Isaac Newton as being like the pinnacle of science and like the scientific method. And he had the gravity, laws of motion, one of the important figures in the founding of calculus. I want to say he did some other stuff too. Like, of course, he did some other stuff, but I'm bad at remembering that part of it. Yeah. But so for the 10 million words that Isaac Newton had roughly written about different scientific discoveries and things that he was interested in, about 1 million of those were about alchemy. Yeah. So about 10% of all the things that he was interested in, what alchemy was one of the big ones. And so, like Jesse said, he spent a lot of his time translating works like the Emerald Tablet, and he had taken inspiration from these alchemists that came before him, including some guy, and I'm drawing a blank on what his name is now, but it starts with a B. But he provided.
Call him Brian.
Yes, Brian gave Isaac Newton the recipe to make one of the components of the Philosopher's Stone, which was called philosophic mercury, and they recently discovered Newton's recipe for the philosophic mercury.
Really? What was it?
Yes, I'm not sure what the recipe is, but you can find it online because it was purchased by the Chemical Heritage Foundation in 2016, and they made all of they're trying to like make all of Newton's works available online for people to see.
Wow.
So he thought that he was onto something when he had this recipe for the philosophic mercury.
Am I right to say that there's actually quite a few recipes out there for the Sorcerer Stone?
Oh, most definitely. As you can see with the different interpretations and ingredients and like all the ambiguity amongst like the recipes handed down through generations, is that we're bound to like branch off from the main tree a lot and to try a lot of things. We're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, like, sort of thing.
Wow. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
Maybe
I'm immortal. Maybe I'm not.
So do you want to know one of the weirdest things that they tried to make the Sorcerer's Stone out of?
What?
It was urine.
Ugh.
Yes. So this actually was like very gross. Yes. I'm
pretty sure that's mentioned in the errors of ways that people made. This is an error. You should not make it out of urine.
Well, people were definitely into this whole urine idea because in like the 1600s, there was this guy named Hennig Brandt, and he was following the urine path like really hard. Oh. He boiled and distilled 1,200 gallons of his own urine. And when he was able to, like
a lot of time to
when he distilled it all down, it made a substance that was kind of like a rock, and it glowed in the dark.
Called the kidney stone, bud.
It was phosphorus, is what it was. He discovered phosphorus by boiling down his urine.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is like
one of really discovered something.
Yeah. Phosphorus is used in like matches and gunpowder and a lot of other things.
It's explosive.
Right. Yeah. So this is like one of the real scientific discoveries that was a happy accident along the way of alchemy, is that this guy in his apartment boiling down his pee for a long time, is that he was able to discover phosphorus. I don't know if it was worth it for him, and I imagine what it smelled like, but he discovered something cool.
Significant other.
If he had significant other, he probably did not have a significant other at this point. She probably left around like gallon 45 or something like that.
You're obsessed with piss.
You're not getting a triple digit gallons. Your first name is Hennig. I've got a lot of things about pee in my notes, but I don't know if we want to talk about them quite yet. I will give you a recipe at the end that involves pee, and I'll like go through a little bit of the steps of it, about what you do with the pee if you want to know. But before we get there, let's see. So one of the other big guys. Okay, so I didn't know this beforehand. I've heard of this guy before. His name is John Dee. He was like an occultist that was in. I want to say. He was definitely in England, and he advised the king or the monarchy during a certain time period. He was like the official occultist of the monarchy or whatever. He was like I don't want to say he was the Rasputin of England, but he was in the court and stuff like that. Yeah, he was a guy that they consulted with. So there was this like text that was recovered from, I don't know if it was his grave or if it was like an alchemist like site or grave site or something. But in it was an encoded text that they tried to like break the code of, and they sent it off to all these different like code breakers. And it kind of looks like this picture that I have right here. I'll put this up on the shows, but you see how there,
you'll be able to see it on the screen.
See how there's like a spiral, and then like in these spirals there is this is an engraving or an etching, and these are symbols that occur throughout this middle part right here. You can't see them because my printer is not giving you like great pixelation details.
I see it,
but the book was written like this, and there was a lot of things like this code that were in the book. And no one could break the code. But
it literally looks like a lock. Like I feel like I'm in the inside of a lock. Look at this.
So they sent it out to these different code breakers, and this one guy who had success with like breaking some 100-year-old code that was used by like the Irish Liberation Army or something. And he was like it was them. He was like a savant he was like the Rain Man of code breaking, and he was able to break it in a few weekends. That it didn't take him very long. He was like doing it on a napkin or something like that. Like he was just like, I'm
there it is.
Yeah, this is just easy. This is like the New York Times crossword puzzle for me, guys.
I've needed this challenge.
Yeah, he did. That's what he was like. He was like, man, he said, I felt like Indiana Jones doing breaking the code. It was like a real cipher. And they said that if it had lived up to the normal expectations of ciphers from the time that this came from, that it would have been really easy for us to break because of like the way that codes evolved over time. There was like, I've read a really cool book. It was called Code Breakers, about how there's like a, what do you call it? A war, arms race, arms race between the code makers and the code breakers. And every time that the code makers come up with a new idea to encrypt something, that the code breakers break it, and then they have to like go back to the drawing board, and then it's just like we get more complicated codes. So this code seemed out of time for other ones around the time period in which it was found. So like it was like centuries more advanced, and that's why none of our contemporary guys, except for this like one guy, was able to break it. And it gave a recipe for the stone that was encoded by this John Dee guy.
Ooh, what's the recipe?
We don't know because that was not in the article that I read. They did not release the recipe with the article or with like the discovery of it, which is lame.
Wow.
So that means that they have an encoded recipe somewhere that people have access to that came from like centuries past and was important enough to encode like this.
What kind of recipes do you have? I'm very interested because I didn't.
Jesse's very interested in the recipes. I'm going to see
just some general ideas of the recipes. I don't want all of them because there's so much.
Okay, I've got.
So this is so sweet that I feel like my teeth are going to rot out soon. I mean, it's not that sweet because we did like dilute it.
We need to dilute it more.
Yeah, but it's like I'm starting to like feel the sugar on my teeth.
Do you want to divide the last bit between us?
Sure.
Here you go. I'll do that, and you'll do that, and I'll look at the.
Yeah, give me some.
All right. So, do you want the P one or the not P? Let's start with
not a P one.
Okay, let's start with the not P one. Okay, guys, it was kind of hard to find some recipes for the Philosopher's Stone. I even went to DuckDuckGo to look for some of it because we didn't want like Google censorship. But I did find this one on Reddit that this on
Reddit.
Yes, this guy
found a
Philosopher's Stone
recipe on Reddit.
Oh yes, and this from a book called Real Alchemy: A Primer of Practical Alchemy by Robert Allen Bartlett. And the guy says I wouldn't suggest doing it because it sounds pretty dangerous. I'm like, okay, well, why are you posting it online then? Okay.
So people do it.
I'll just read a couple of things of this to you. It says like step 1, purify the element mercury. You clean a sample of mercury with pure water or rainwater. Then you squeeze the mercury out with some leather. Then cover the dried mercury with powdered dry sea salt and mix it with a mortar and pestle. Depending on the impurity of the mercury, the salt may darken. So wash it out with the previously mentioned rainwater or pure water method. Repeat these steps. Put the mercury with an equal amount of sea salt and cover with 10% acetic acid distilled vinegar. Mix the three together for 10 minutes. Press it through a chamois, which is a piece of leather, leaving no residue of the mercury as it rolls off. This is the purified mercury. Now, an
This
animation
is as detailed as like baking.
is very detailed. Yes, it says now an animation of mercury is required. To do this, in the simplest method, get tiny bits of gold and grind to a powder with salt and vinegar to a paste. Wash out the salt and let the gold dry. Add 29 parts of mercury to 1.5 parts of gold and grind. Wash the substance with water and wipe with a paper towel. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, then this goes on like this. And then it says, heat this glass to about 40 degrees Celsius for 3 months. So you got to hold it this temperature for 3 months.
So it's a little bit more than our 30 to 40.
Oh, it's going to get way worse than that.
Yeah.
So then like some more things go on. It's like grinding until there's no globules of mercury. I like the word globules because it's kind of fun to say. And like you distill a bunch of stuff and then later on it's like, let's stay at 40 to 50 degrees Celsius for another 3 months. The matter will turn black. And that's what we talked about with the colors changing, is that like black is the first stage. So then once it's completely black, then you raise the heat again after 2 or 3 more months, blah, blah, blah. Then eventually it's going to become white.
So this is following that like method that we heard from Nicholas.
Mm-hmm. And then after 9 months, the matter is now completely white. And then over the next several months, raise the temperature to about 130 degrees Celsius, and then it will soon be yellow and then red. Then you heat to 200 degrees Celsius, blah, blah, blah. And eventually
200 degrees Celsius is really hot.
Yeah, I imagine that it is. And then eventually you can break open the glass and you will have the Philosopher's Stone. A small piece of it filed can turn a bit of base metal into gold.
Wow.
And there was some kind of recipe that's going to take forever for someone to do.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like that sounds crazy.
So in like 2010, there was a website that was posted called, I think it was like theageofaquarius.com or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yes. And on it was like a PDF of a book that was, I think it was called The Age of Aquarius was the book. And it had a detailed description of how to make a Philosopher's Stone. And it in the book, it was like super detailed that he referenced over 50 previous alchemical texts. And he had like step-by-step instructions in the PDF for like what ingredients to use for the stone, how it should look, how long to heat it for, like what temperature and all this stuff. And that he posted it for free on this website. And that there was a forum on the website where people could post their results and they could talk to the guy who posted the book.
So it was like a conversation.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. There's a conversation. And so people started making it on this website and like posting how they were doing it. And it was using the urine method that we're going to talk about in a second. Yes. And after a few months, I would say that the website inexplicably got shut down. Yes, exactly. So after there was some discussion with some
guys are selling stones.
But like the conspiracy theorist in me makes it think that, like people were getting on the right track. So like they had to shut them down pretty quick. And now the Age of Aquarius website is gone and you can't find the PDF or whatever anywhere. But it was like 50.
That song, The Age of Aquarius.
I think that's from like the 80s, right?
Yeah.
But even though the website's gone, you can still find a PDF of like the whole thing. You just can't find the discussion board where people were like posting like how it was going,
what was happening.
And I don't know if people were successful in their attempt, but they definitely attempted it. And I found a recipe that does involve some urine. I couldn't find the actual one because I don't know. I probably need like the dark web for that or something like that.
The dark web.
Yeah, I don't want to lose my internet access in my apartment building, but. Do you want to hear about how the urine?
Sure. Okay, for it.
This is the climax, ladies and gentlemen.
The climax. How to make your own Sorcerer's Stone, allegedly.
When I was making my mental,
I don't know this Nicholas Flamel's recipe.
I don't either. I don't know if him and Parnell were like hovering over a bucket or not, and like saving all of their piss.
It's so hard to tell. It's 1300s.
It is hard to tell.
Yeah.
So it says first,
dirty world.
The red salt of urine is prepared as follows. So you let good urine stand for some time until it putrefies. And I found that word putrefies in a lot of recipes that are like things that I looked at.
That just sounds disgusting.
Exactly. There are some guys on the BBC that tried to make it out of urine in like 2004, and it's on a video that you can watch online. I couldn't find the full episode. The full episode was unavailable, but there was like a 2 or 3 minute clip of them. They talk about how bad it smells when they were distilling putrefied urine. But so
it's not petrified, it's putrefied.
No, it's putrefied. Yeah. They distill the spirit of the urine from the urine itself while evaporating the remaining phlegma, phlegma, to dryness.
This is above me.
Yes, me too. It says, pour the spirit of urine on this salt residue in a flask, cover it with a bland ambelic, and let it set for several weeks in a mild digestion. Then the spirit of urine extracts and dissolves the salt and sulfur contained in the residue. This done, collect the spirit of urine in another clean flask, upon which apply an ambelic with a receptacle luted on it. Then distill the spirit of urine gently until a salt skin appears. That scene, set it in the cold, and it will result in a beautiful, brightened, and darkened transparent crystal. Blah, 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 blah. And this goes on. And this is about turning it from like transparent crystals, and eventually it changes to gold crystals, and then it will become red. And at the end of the recipe,
foul.
Yes,
yeah.
That's why when people asked me if we were going to do the recipe for the for the stone on air, I was like,
"No,
yeah, we're going to do that. Yeah, we're going to be like pissing in a bucket and trying to heat it up and distill it."
I think the butterbeer was a better direction.
Yeah, me too. But it talks about for like the transmutation process, you must encase some of the powdered stone in a hot beeswax and allow it to cool, so you can easily hold it in your hand. So then you melt the lead, and then you throw in your ball of the wax, and you stir the lead with a hot iron, and then like when it stirs it together, gives time for it to cool, and it'll go through like a glowing sort of thing, and then you end up with gold or whatever.
Wow.
All right, and so you can do the transmutation of gold with that part, but if you want to do the elixir of life, then this part says you take the ruby glass stone, and it must be made into a tincture elixir by dissolving it into a good wine spirit. And then
wine spirit.
Yes, whatever that means. The dose is 1 to 5 drops, but take great care because this elixir can fire the body and kill a person, but it will also cure any disease if used properly. Wow. It will also open your eyes and ears to the spiritual world. Read the old alchemy textbooks to find further instruction on the exact dosage.
That is strange.
It doesn't say elixir of life, but it's kind of hinting at it.
Yeah, he has all these things. It's the stone of immortality, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
weird.
That's interesting. Question is, okay, so I'm a little bit off the camera. Why would people, if this was not true, if none of this stuff about the elixir of life was real at all, why would people take such time and specificity to include these details in a recipe and hiding the recipe and encoding the recipe in text and architecture and stuff like that? What is the point of all of it?
Yeah, like why would someone just do that? It seems mean. Unless it really is like Joker, or like when Alfred's talking about Joker, that there's some people
just want to watch the world burn.
But
I think about that a lot.
Generally speaking, would someone go through such an elaborate
hoax
just to drink their own crystallized?
Right. Oh, I'm making a joke. Everybody's drinking their own pee over here. Like,
but they're like the only ones that are doing it. Yeah. No one's like, oh, I'm going to go.
Yeah, because it's so encoded that like it's not like the masses are doing it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like only every now and then
a few sorcerers
who are way too into it.
Yeah. So like,
I don't know. That's kind of where it got me. Where I'm not sure what to think about it, because obviously they believe, like the Edge of Aquarius website that I was talking about that had the PDF that referenced
people who are doing it,
that referenced over 50 other alchemical things, which took a recipe that detailed a recipe that takes years to make. Either they're like the type of person who would just like spend forever on a hoax because that's like the thing that they're bent on doing, or they actually believe what they're doing. They subscribe to it fully.
Yeah, they're 100% in.
And they want to disseminate the information.
The amount of evidence that supports Nicholas Flamel's like faking his own death and all of a sudden having so much money are really weird to me.
I agree with that.
That one's so strange. You don't go from owning a bookstore to funding a cathedral.
Yeah, it seems like he spent a meticulous amount of detail to call attention to his death.
Yeah.
And then for him not to be in the casket.
But I'm just literally not in there.
One of the things that I read that I don't think that I mentioned earlier was that since his wife Perennial supposedly died years before him, a couple of years, is that she actually went to hide out in Switzerland.
Oh. And
then when he like completed the process of faking their deaths, that he went to like rendezvous with her after that.
Well, I mean, that'd be wise. Immortality.
Because you can't do them both at once, right?
Yeah.
You can't both fake your death at the same time because then it's like too suspicious. So you gotta like, you go first, honey, and I'll follow you in a little while. Yeah.
But they dig it up and no one's in there.
You weren't expecting them to dig it up.
They absolutely fake their own deaths, which is crazy to me.
That gives some kind of weight to
some kind of
even
weight.
if they didn't have the stone necessarily or like immortality, they still fake their death.
Yeah, something happened there.
Maybe it was to get out of like the possibility of them having too much wealth, like miraculously or like not explainably. I don't know. But then like, well, how did they do that then?
Where do you think Nicholas Flamel would be right now? Who do you think he is?
Ooh,
is he still in the limelight? Is he hiding out now? Because he's like, oh my
That's
God.
what I was thinking. Is that like after a certain amount of time, then you've got about two choices. Which one would you prefer? Do you want to insert yourself and like use your immortality to as much advantage as possible?
The further humanity or yourself or whatever.
Yeah, probably yourself. Or are you so fed up and like jaded with it that you're like, you've gone full like hermit pretty much.
Yeah,
and that you're
disappeared.
like, you've completely renounced all like modern society and culture.
The Amish community is actually built on.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends on the person and the individual, I think.
Yeah, I wonder
what they would do.
What happens if it's like one of the people we know, like one of the famous
people? Like, yeah, like it is Jay-Z.
It's Jay-Z.
Who knows?
So I think I want to draw this to our end.
Okay.
First of all, let's do a little bit of a rating. How we liking this butterbeer?
Let's see. I would say
it's a simple recipe.
It gets you.
Which we're going to put the recipe right here for you guys. So
I'm going to magically make it appear right there. Where Jesse just pointed.
Right here.
This is making my editing more difficult.
It'll be somewhere on this screen.
In this
somewhere.
hemisphere. Butterbeer is good. I would not drink it a lot. Like I wouldn't order it. Probably besides one, maybe.
It's fun. It's not bad.
It's a novelty drink.
Yeah, it's a novelty. It's sweetened. It's nice. I just don't usually drink sweet drinks. But if you were like doing a mixed drink, if you like sweet drinks, this is actually really good.
I agree.
If you like sweet drinks,
it's just not like too sweet. It just has that like it's going to be sweet for your body.
Yeah,
your pancreas is going to be working overtime to keep your blood sugar in check when you're drinking this.
Yeah. And so think about that when you're drinking it.
If you're like me and your pancreas,
you could get You could get diet cream soda.
Yeah, that is
kind of cover a little bit of it.
I'm trying to make the elixir of life here, Jesse, not kill our gut biomes.
It's not bad. If I liked sweet drinks, I would give it a proper 8.
Yeah,
because I don't really like sweet drinks. I'm going to give it a 6.
I agree with that. I'm not a big sweet drink person, but like thinking about like a sweet margarita or something like that I would give an 8 to. Is that I would probably put this in the same realm as that. I wouldn't order it a lot, but I would like to drink
every now and then. Definitely, if you're in the space where you're like, oh, we're watching all the Harry Potter movies.
Oh yeah, let's make a butterbeer.
Yeah, it's perfect for that. If you guys are doing a Halloween party or having like a Harry Potter marathon. Yeah, this is a perfect drink for it. Like absolutely,
even like a winter gathering with your friends that you don't see very often.
Yeah, absolutely. But otherwise, for me, a little sweet.
Yeah, me too.
Even with the bubbly water in it. Sorcerer Stone, that was a freaking awesome.
I'm gonna give it a 9. I think.
Yeah,
like
a 9.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh. Yeah, I'm still like wondering what happened to Nicholas Flamel?
Yes, so much evidence for the people who may have found it, and so much influence over so many other people for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. There's people still now. I think there was up to the maybe even early 2000s. There was someone saying they saw Nicholas and Parnell. A couple somewhere.
One of the random cool things is that in Paris, like where his restaurant is and where he used to live, is that there's a street named Nicolas Flamel, like Rue Nicolas Flamel, because that means street, and then like the one for Paranel runs perpendicular to it, so that
that's cute.
So that they're intersecting for all time.
There's such influence.
There's such influence, and like we got a bit of constructive feedback of like how we rate the legends, because a lot of times, like especially me and probably Jesse too, wants to like rate them emotionally. Is that we're like how much that we like them going into them, and like that kind of influences how enthusiastic we are during our research.
Of course.
But we want to like objectively talk about why the legends remain legends throughout time, and like how long they have remained legends for. And thinking about the Sorcerer's Stone is that it's been a legend for minimum 1,000 years, maybe 2,000 years.
No, but we're talking about like ancient Egypt, like
right. It's like So this is a really long time. It has influenced countless like acolytes of alchemists, in like that Wikipedia thing I was telling you about. There were hundreds of them on that. And across cultures, you have like the Middle East, you have Europe, you have the Greeks and the Romans before like the Renaissance and stuff like that. So its influence is like undisputed. It comes all the way down to like having been a Harry Potter.
All the way to Harry Potter, which is for the millennial,
it's the coup de grace of
exactly.
Fiction or entertainment.
Yeah.
I would give it a 9, and like I can't think of many things that would be better than it, but I think we gave Atlantis a 10.
Yeah,
right.
Because Atlantis is so
because Atlantis is Atlantis.
Yeah, so I'm going to agree a 9. I said at a 9 because it really was. It was so fun to study too, and like the lives and the different people who like.
It was just elusive enough to like
that you couldn't catch it.
Yeah, you couldn't catch it, and one of the interesting things, like going back a bit, is that like all the recipes were involving mercury a lot of the time.
Every single one.
Was like, we'll take this mercury and like do this with it or whatever. It's like, why in the world were these people using mercury that we know is poisonous? Like one of the first like things that you learn about the periodic table is that
mercury is poisonous.
Mercury is one of the poisonous ones. It's in a thermometers, and if the thermometer breaks, then you don't touch the mercury inside it. So why were they using so much mercury? Like, were there just rivers of mercury back then that people were using? And it turns out that no, I don't know where mercury comes from. I'm sorry, I meant to look that up.
Like
but exactly. It's like, where does it come from? I don't know. But mercury was one of those things that it was a metal, but it was a liquid at room temperature. So when other metals and things interacted with it, it made an obvious change to them. And so it sort of exhibited this ability to transmute things, or like break down materials like immediately before your eyes. So mercury had this whole like as above, so below sort of like property to it, where it could exert its influence on the physical world immediately. Yeah. And so like for some reason this like captivated the imagination of the alchemist, and it along with sulfur and salt, I think.
It really did make weird. I mean, early alchemy really was the beginning of a scientific experiment.
Right. Yes. Alchemy like ended up becoming chemistry, or like setting the basis for chemistry a lot of the time.
And a lot of them just
exactly. Like phosphorus was one of the real things that they came up with, and I think that like a bunch of the acids, I'm not sure if like hydrochloric acid or if like whatever, but tinctures, like you said, tinctures were a thing that alchemists came up with, and like the distillation process, distilling things that would become like essential oils for all you, what do you call it? Those mid-level marketing scheme things or whatever.
Pyramid schemes.
Yes, right? Pyramid schemes. Yes. So the alchemists were totally not necessarily, even if they weren't successful in their quest for the Sorcerer's Stone or gold. Yes, exactly. But they were inadvertently or indirectly responsible for like the birth of like chemistry and scientific methods. Which
I think is also another reason to give them 9.
Yeah, because it's practical influence as well. That you weren't expecting kind of going into it. Yeah, because when you think about a guy who's boiling 12,000 gallons of his piss, that you don't think that we're going to be reading about him like 400 years later.
Here we are,
and we are
talking about him.
Imagine that being like your claim to fame.
I hope so. Something about it. Hopefully, Legends and Libations, right?
Yes, exactly. That's funny. I'm trying to think of any other like crazy stuff that I read about the Philosopher's Stone though, because like the stories were all over the place.
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
Definitely give it a read yourself if you're looking for anything like that.
One of the guys that I use as a main reference for this was this guy on YouTube named Mr. Mythos, and he's very content heavy and a little bit dry, but I was very impressed with the depth of his research into these different topics, especially the Saint Germain and Fulcanelli and Nicholas Flamel. He had videos on all of these guys.
Oh, he's great for it. Yeah, we definitely have to lift up all the many people who have put their research forth for us to go ahead and learn from.
Well, and things like Isaac Newton having the recipe that was auctioned off or like whatever, like that's crazy in itself. Yeah, that just like shows you the prevalent, like how pervasive, how much it permeated the culture at the time, because you had like alchemy and science and stuff like that were not completely separate things like they would be now. You would think of one as being like an esoteric and then one as being like a materialistic science. But back then, like these things were not mutually exclusive. Like they could go together in the same laboratory and you could study them at the same time. Like
absolutely.
Yeah, they weren't one or the other. They were both and.
That's the beginning of science. Right?
And I like that amount of wonder that they had that like spurred them on a lot of the time, because in the modern world you're missing a lot of that. Oh, well, all corners of the map are discovered. Like,
when's the last time any of us said, "Oh, I want to go discover that," and then just did random experiments? Just look it up on Google. There's something.
Somebody's already done it.
There's something quite quest-worthy to like their experiments. The time that they're taking, the control that they're taking to see how it gets created.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like that recipe that took months to do, or like years. Like what is up with that?
Walking to Spain.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I was a big fan of the Philosopher's Stone. This was a good one.
Well, guys, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for sipping through history with us.
With Legends and Libations.
Yes, and we will be back again next time
for a Christmas episode.
Yes, Christmas episode next time.
So
we promise to have it out before Christmas Day.
We're going to have it out like
a couple
early
weeks.
December for you guys, so that you guys can be like, oh, it's Christmas. I'm on Christmas vacation. I'm going to listen to Legends and Libations because they're going to have something great. Anyways, thank you for listening to Legends and Libations, and we'll hear from you guys soon.
We appreciate it, and hit like and subscribe and tell a friend about us if you enjoyed the episode.
Absolutely.
Have a good night.
Good night.